Chapter 31, Life 6. My intent clashed with that of my disciples. For a while, we glared at each other, exchanging volleys of intent. In that silence, Manho took a step forward. Master, are you going to break your promise with us? Promise? Yes. You clearly promised that once we destroyed all of Mockley clan's territories, we would strike together at the Imperial Palace. You told us to survive for that. But why are you changing your words now, telling us to go back? Other disciples, besides Manho, also emitted fierce intent as they joined in. That's right. Why do you make a promise with us and then prevent us from fulfilling it? We are trying to survive to keep our promise. We all thought it didn't matter if we died and endured hell-like training. So why? I examined the children's intents. They were of an indescribable color, but, generally, their colors were casting a dark blue light. Sorrow. My disciples were all crying together. You too are grieving. Over the deaths of comrades, of friends. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry and ashamed as a master. As a master, I let my disciple die. My heart aches with regret. But that's why I couldn't back down anymore. I will keep my promise. The day you can truly defeat me, I'll join you to strike at the Imperial Palace. As soon as I finished speaking, Kawa lunged at me with a dagger. Surround him. With that, Manho shouted in a booming voice, and the disciples quickly formed the transcending cultivation formation around me. A formation created to counter cultivators. Peak experts in the martial world cannot properly sense the intent of cultivators from inside their domain. Conversely, cultivators can easily see through the movements of peak experts. A formation created to mitigate the extreme disparity between martial artists and cultivators. Even if a cultivator can observe actions within, and even if we can't predict the cultivator's movements, the transcending cultivation formation is capable of completely grinding down anyone trapped within. Basically, since the transcending cultivation formation is infused with the insights of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, the flow of the formation itself disrupts the flow of consciousness. Even if I execute the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts and escape their perception, it's not easy to escape from the formation. The record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts is essentially about cutting off the opponent's consciousness and escaping from their perception. It's not a technique for sudden spatial movement. It is a formation designed to counter cultivators, regardless of whether the opponent's actions can be predicted or not. Whether or not the opponent escapes perception, anyone trapped in the formation will be shredded. That's the transcending cultivation formation. Despite the loss of 34 members, the disciples linked their intents well, filling the gaps and pressuring me. Whoosh. The disciples surrounding me in a circle started to close in, rotating around me. Multiple human barriers surround me, rotating in different directions to tighten the formation. Within this formation, numerous flows of intent intertwined. The proficiency of the transcending cultivation formation among the disciples has significantly increased. The movement of the disciples themselves disrupts the direction of intent, making it difficult to discern whose intent belongs to whom. With the strange optical illusions caused by the formation, I couldn't read their movements. But this is not enough. It's certainly a formation that can counter cultivators. Even a martial artist of the three flowers gather at the summit would be shredded by this formation. However, I am nearing the extreme limit of three flowers. I am on the verge of achieving the ultimate realm of 5 energies converging at the origin. Recently, I have also understood the superior counterparts of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts and gazing martial arts and exceeding martial arts scripture. Are you saying with just these skills you won't listen to me? What confidence do you have? Whiz. As my concentration reached its peak, I entered the world of intent, seeing thousands of colors. Entering that spectrum of colors, I assimilated my disciples' intents with my own through the enlightenment of 3 flowers. Record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts. Not just cutting off consciousness and intent as in record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, but developing the enlightenment of 3 flowers to its extreme. A martial art that completely dives into the opponent's movements. My sword pierces through the rapidly rotating, transcending cultivation formation of intents. Although a distinctly different intent intervened, the disciples didn't feel anything unusual until my sword energy completely mingled within the formation. If even one of them was at the level of a mature mid-peak master, they would have felt something. But their growth was hindered by the resentful spirits of their families entwined in their upper dantians. Whoosh. Without hesitation, I dove into the flow of the formation, swinging my sword gang towards it. Boom. Dust scattered. The ground shook. Ugh. Block it. Severing mountain swordsmanship. Layered mountains. The sword gang split into thousands of strands, scattering in all directions. Even when split, it was still sword gang. It was a different dimension from just splitting sword energy. Boom. Their initial actions, designed to nullify sword energy, now scattered in all directions, annihilating the formation. You can't stop me. Unless you sever that obsession, release your family's resentful spirits, and realize intent. Boom. The transcending cultivation formation collapsed. Wasn't avenging your families against their murderers your goal? If you want to become stronger, first sever your attachments. Flash. I executed the mountain and valley transformation to shake the terrain, completely breaking the formation and scattered paralysis powder. The disciples, having used up all their poison and antidote during the territory raids, could not resist my paralysis powder and all fell. The disciple who used the Langya staff, named Gisan, looked at me and said, "How can I sever this? How can I sever the voices of my family? You don't understand us." I couldn't respond. All I could do was forcibly drag my fallen disciples away. That was all I could do. I am a poor master, I am sorry. Let's go. I'll help you become stronger. More. Where do you think you're going? I waited for you to finish making graves for mortals, but suddenly you're fighting amongst yourselves. This is why I despise martial artists. The overseer of the assassination squad, the old man, clicked his tongue and interrupted me, descending on a flying artifact. From what I hear, you're talking nonsense. What right do you have to take away the assassination squad? I acknowledge you're a good martial arts instructor, but I can't allow the detachment of the squad in this situation. What use will my weak disciples, who haven't even reached 3 flowers, be in the upcoming battles? From now on, those who haven't reached 3 flowers will be useless. Quality will become more important than quantity. They're not useless just because they're not important. The Mockley clan has started preparing. Most of the cultivators in the remaining territories are in the mid to late stages of chi refining. My disciples are no longer useful against them. So you admit that you've been insufficient in your training. That's right. Since I've been insufficient, I'll take the blame and retrain my disciples to be useful. Please allow me this. Squirm. Veins bulged slightly on the forehead of the old man. He raised his spiritual energy with an annoyed expression. I hastily retreated out of his range, ready to draw my sword at any moment. Constantly talking nonsense and trying to detach the squad. Are you in your right mind? The secret battle between the Gene and Mockley is justified due to the high proportion of mortals. If a large number of mortals suddenly detach in such a situation, it only gives the Mockley clan's upper class a reason to intervene. Even if my inadequate disciples leave, the forces brought by Sir Kim. Enough with this nonsense. For disobedience. Virum. Spiritual energy gathered in the old man's hand. That's when it happened. Crack. A strong hand silently grabbed the old man's arm. It was Kim Young-hoon. When did you enter my consciousness? Look here, Sir Gene. Kim Young-hoon tightened his grip on the old man's arm, smiling. The old man's arm lost blood circulation, turning pale as his energy scattered. CO, my brother, is from my hometown. The crimes of a fellow townsman are my crimes too, so please punish me as well. Eek. The overseer old man strained to escape from Kim Young-hoon's grip, and his other hand seemed to cast some spell. However, the flow of energy around Kim Young-hoon sliced and erased all the old man's spells. After a while of struggling, the overseer old man, with a flushed face, shouted, Fine, fine. I'll overlook the disobedience. Just let go of my arm. Only then did Kim Young-hoon release the old man's arm, and the old man, sweating, began to restore energy to his arm. I may overlook it, but the clan elders won't let you just leave. What I said isn't just my personal opinion. These kids are more than just a force. They're a justification. Whether they're effective or not, they must be deployed in battle. Then, I have a request, I said, looking at my disciples. My disciples have forcibly awakened their talents and reached the pinnacle realm. Somehow, I have managed to stabilize them there with my training. Yet, to transcend beyond this point, they need to realize intent and reach the realm of Chi Silk. However, as long as the resentful spirits of their relatives linger in their upper dantians, they cannot progress further. So, I know you're the one who bestowed the resentful spirits on them. Please help their spirits ascend. At this point, it's just a limitation for my disciples. You want to detach the spirits. The overseer old man, who was scanning my disciples' upper dantians, clicked his tongue and spoke. Sorry, but it can't be done. Even if I try to undo the spell, it won't work unless these kids want to let go of their families. There are only 2 ways to undo it now. Either a core formation elder forcibly removes the spirits, or the disciples themselves let them go. Now that I think about it, there's another way. If these kids die, the spell will be undone automatically. You knew all this, didn't you? The old man looked at me with half-closed eyes and asked, Did I know? I smiled bitterly and nodded. Yes, it was a question grasping at pointless hope. Slowly, as the paralysis began to wear off, my disciples started speaking. Who? Just who? Thinks they can separate me from my family. It can't be done. Inadequate skills can be improved by accumulating more battle experience. Without exception, none of them wanted to let go of their families. Nobody. The overseer old man, looking at my disciples, turned to me with a mocking tone. Huh, the so-called master doesn't even know who he's teaching. Do these kids seem alive to you? All of these kids have already resigned to death. Your disciples are alive, but not living. They are the dead, obsessed with revenge. Huh, fine. I'll help a little. Whoosh. As the old man formed a spell, a green light burst from his grasp and seeped into the minds of the remaining disciples. It's the Spirit Ascension spell. If your disciples succeed in letting go of their attachments to their families and undo the spell, their families' spirits will naturally ascend. Yes, if your disciples let go of their attachments. Not even knowing who you're teaching and giving such ridiculous orders. Both the clan elders and your disciples themselves don't want to withdraw from the upcoming battles. Stop clinging to pointless delusions and lead the troops properly. After finishing, the overseer old man gave Kim Young-hoon a brief glare, muttered something about mortal origins, and flew away on his flying artifact. I clenched my teeth and looked up at the sky. There was nothing I could do. Kim Hyung, I wonder if relying on the power of the Jin clan was the right thing to do. I have so many doubts. Me too. What should we do? What should I do? He sighed softly. There's no choice. The Jin clan may not be good, but the cultivators of Mokli are worst. We have to choose such an option. I clenched my teeth, fed my fallen disciples the antidote, and helped them up. Then, we had no choice but to gather and head to the next battlefield. It was what everyone wanted, except me. Half a year passed. Today, another fierce battle ended, and I roamed the territories of the Mokli clan, collecting the bodies of the victims and my disciples. Recently, it seems your hair has been turning white more and more. Are you okay? Kim Young-hoon, who was helping me collect the bodies, looked at me with a pitiful expression and asked. Lately, I have been aging rapidly. Until now, I hadn't aged much due to consuming many health-related medicine. However, my hair has been turning white at an alarming rate. I'm fine. Don't overdo it. Kim Young-hoon looked at me with pitying eyes and then went off to collect other bodies. Among the ruins of the destroyed Mokli territory, I found the body of my disciple, Gaizgu. His poison blade, a large sword always well maintained, reflected my face cleanly even after his death. My eyes were bloodshot, with dark circles underneath. My lips were dry, and my hair was a mess of white and gray. Once again, I pulled the body of a dead disciple from the debris. Because of my weakness, I couldn't save my disciple today. Why? I screamed towards the sky. Why is this happening to me? Why? I screamed until my throat was sore. Why did I receive such talent? Why must I still remain in the state of 3 flowers? Why? Why can't I still enter 5 energies? Why am I? I roared, gripping the earth. The imprint of my hand was embedded in the ground. Why? Am I powerless to do anything? I knew. It wasn't the fault of the heavens. It was all my fault. If only I had tried a little harder. If I had trained even a bit more desperately. Even if it meant my brain might explode. If I had aspired for a higher realm. Yes, if I had been just a little stronger, it would have been resolved. Please, give me talent. Please, give me strength. I gritted my teeth and howled. Why am I still, after doing this much, so powerless? I regretted it. Why did I stupidly put my disciples in such a place? I should have opposed even at the risk of my life. No, why did I teach these kids? Even if I had to be chased away, I shouldn't have taken them in. No, why did I even come to this place and form a bond? Yes, I shouldn't have joined the Jin clan to stop the evil deeds of the Mokli clan. The disciples I taught out of guilt had become a part of my life. Every time these children died, it felt like my flesh was being carved away. The bodies have been collected, Master. Any survivors? Manho, with tearful eyes in front of Gaizgu's body, came to me, clenching his teeth to report. 314 are left. All right, let's go. I staggered, carrying the body of my disciple, and headed to the burial site. I buried my disciples in a sunny place and recited the rites led by Kim Young-hoon. The ritual of soul consolation, mastered by Kim Young-hoon, seeped in, and the spirits of the victims ascended. Kim Young-hoon also recited the rites for my disciples' bodies. From the graves of the mortals he recited 4. Small light orbs rose and scattered into the air. We silently watched the scene. Then it happened. Ha ha ha. Finally, the permission has been granted. One of the chi-building cultivators from the Jin clan, who had been fighting with us, exclaimed with a face full of joy. In his hand was a piece of communication paper. Everyone gather. The conversation between the elders of our main house and the upper ranks of Mokli is over. He exclaimed with a joyful expression, looking around us. The negotiation is over. They say if the Jin clan accepts only the participation of mortals and chi-refining cultivators, they will allow a challenge to replace the Yanghua imperial family. Oh, finally, the elders have succeeded in the negotiation. Indeed, the elders are commendable. The eyes of the Jin clan cultivators shone with excitement, and so did the eyes of my disciples and the martial artists under Kim Young-hoon's command. However, Kim Young-hoon and I each wore a bitter smile. Negotiation. The hundreds of lives that had been lost were merely tools for negotiation in the upper echelons of the cultivator clans. Kim Young-hoon seemed to feel the same way. As he was scoffing, he questioned the chi-building cultivator. So, you're saying that by allowing a challenge, we can challenge the Yanghua imperial family, a branch family of the Mokli clan? That's right. Originally, if we attacked the imperial family on a large scale, it would be considered a challenge to the Mokli clan, and we would have to wage a full-scale war. But them accepting the challenge means we can attack the Mokli imperial family with a large army, without a full-scale war. So even the replacement of the imperial family is just a disappearance of a branch family. From his tone, it seemed like the Mokli clan considered Yanghua as just a subordinate force, and that their replacement was within acceptable limits. However, they won't just obediently allow the change of the imperial lineage. They only permit a challenge, and even then, as mentioned earlier, our side can no longer involve chi-building cultivators. Even the Jin clan's chi-building cultivator frowned. The Mokli clan allows all cultivators directly related to the imperial family to participate. The former emperors of Yanghua. Especially, you're talking about the founding emperor. Yes, the Yanghua founding emperor, Mokli Wangshin. While all former emperors were low-level chi refining, he was a highly talented late-stage chi refining cultivator when he ascended to the throne. And he stepped down from the throne and ascended as a chi-building cultivator. A shadow fell on the faces of the Jin clan cultivators. That means, yes, while we can only challenge them with mortals and chi refining, they have Mokli Wangshin, a chi-building cultivator on their side. Those damn Mokli clan dogs. How can chi refining defeat chi building? This, however, the Jin clan's chi-building cultivator, who was briefly irritated, smiled. But don't worry, we have this guy. He approached Kim Young-hoon and patted his shoulder. This young martial artist has the power of a chi-building cultivator. Your mission is crucial. After this mission, the elders of our clan have decided to marry you into a higher family and take you as a son-in-law of the Jin clan. Consider it an honor. Marriage. Kim Young-hoon grimaced, as if remembering something. Well, let's talk about that later. Does the Mokli clan know my power is at the chi-building level? Isn't there something else they're going to say later? At his words, the Jin clan's chi-building cultivator grinned. Even if you recently started learning this and that about cultivation, your cultivation is clearly a chi refining 3rd or 4th star. Their set limit was clearly up to 14th star chi refining, and you fit within that standard. Ha ha ha. What can they do even if they try to nitpick? Ha ha ha. He laughed, seemingly in a good mood. Although we can't help you, with your skills, you should be able to handle Mokli Wangshin. You don't even need to kill him. Just holding him off is enough. The explanation continued. Regardless of the legitimacy of the Yanghua imperial family, if we successfully assassinate the current Emperor Mokli Yung and his son Mokli Hyun, it will be the victory of the Jin clan. All former emperors were talentless and couldn't ascend to chi building and hence died. While you hold off Mokli Wangshin, chi refining cultivators and the mortals will only have to kill Mokli Yung and Mokli Hyun, and the Jin clan can reclaim this country. The chi building cultivator excitedly announced. The Jin clan can restore its name as the imperial family. It seems this cultivator was originally a descendant of the Jin imperial lineage, fervently desiring to reclaim the Yanghua imperial lineage. Even if it is a subordinate force of the cultivator clans, an imperial family is no light matter. He passionately spoke of the glory of the Jin clan reclaiming the imperial lineage for some time. Then, with an excited expression, he flew away with the other Jin clan cultivators on a flying artifact. We left the territory, and I quietly looked at my disciples who had been listening attentively to the chi-building cultivator's words. It's time to fulfill our promise. Though the intents of the disciples were varied, they all had determined expressions. However, I clenched my teeth and made the same request I had made when they first went into battle. Please, survive. And their response was the same as before. I'm sorry, master. I ask you as your master. Please, survive. Now, I had no reason to stop them. I had promised them with my own mouth to join them in revenge if they survived. You all must have lived so far to avenge your families. And you must have no hesitation in dying. But what about those who will be left behind? Why don't you think about my feelings? I'm sorry. Their eyes were filled with dark blue intent. It's not that we don't know Master's feelings. But, Master, you don't understand. Your feelings? Eun-hyun doesn't understand your feelings? Eun-hyun. Just then, Kim Young-hoon, who had been watching our conversation, approached me. These ungrateful brats. Do you know what your master has been feeling while saying such harsh words? A massive surge of energy burst from him. Under his pressure, all my disciples fell to the ground. Cough. Q. Cuff. Do you not know what Seo Eunhyun has been through? Haven't you heard from him? He showed an angry expression and growled. Your friends who died in the past, their resentful spirits are still not fully appeased. So, Seo Eunhyun asked me to let their spirits possess him. It's because of that my brother is getting old, and yet you dare to speak such nonsense. You insolent ones, how can you? While speaking, Kim Young-hoon read the intents of my disciples, and, noticing something strange, turned to look at me sharply. Did you not tell anything to your disciples? Foolish one. Stupid one. A stupid master with stupid disciples. He beat his chest in frustration. Listen, all of you. Your master, in order to fulfill your unfulfilled wishes even in death, did the same foolish thing as you. Despite not being related by blood, he accepted the resentful spirits of your friends into his body, and has been fighting against the cultivators with them. The revelation from Kim Young-hoon shocked the faces of the children. Didn't you feel anything strange seeing your master aging so rapidly? His life was drastically shortened because he was forced to accept more than 200 vengeful spirits not related by blood, to fulfill your stubborn and insolent wishes. Did you not realize how your master has been feeling? He shouted with great anger. These foolish, insolent, and selfish brats. Are only your grievances important? Don't you care about your master's feelings? Stop it, Hyungnim. Such a foolish and frustrating man. Why did you bear it all alone? Did you think you'd be praised for it? Did you expect these foolish and selfish brats to support you? I accepted your request considering your relationship with your disciples. But what is this? You've kept it to yourself all this time without saying a word. This. Overwhelmed, Kim Young-hoon sighed. It's enough. Such a foolish man. Sort it out among yourselves. I will leave first. For a moment, the surroundings were enveloped in silence. After collecting my emotions, I spoke. At first, I accepted the first 34 fallen disciples. I obtained permission from each of them, and contained my disciples' spirits in my upper dantian. Since then, the deceased children have been with me. Although it was hard to accept all their relatives, at least those children have been with me after death. Until now, I felt frustrated by my disciples who clung to death and honed their revenge. But after accepting vengeful spirits like my disciples, I finally understood the children. Master and disciple influence each other. Just as they were influenced by me, I was also influenced by them. That's why the master-disciple relationship is called a familial relationship. Now, I can no longer simply block my disciples. I have come to understand their emotions, the grudges in their hearts. Now, I can empathize with you, even if it's weak. I understand a little of the pain and grudge you all bear. Looking around, I said, but still facing their emotions head-on and empathizing with them. I expressed my desire. I wish you were alive. My talent is extremely modest. Even though I maximized my limited talent by accepting the resentful spirits of my disciples under much more favorable conditions than other masters, I have yet to discover the last of the 7 emotions. Desire is my unattainable emotion. Even though I know that desire equals life, I have not yet discovered this last emotion. I have not reached the ultimate enlightenment, nor have I understood what life is. It has been a life of not being able to do and not doing. So please, I won't tell you to forget your grudges or not to repay them. But, at least all of you, please live that life. Before today, my disciples never listened to me. But now, they nodded to my words. We will definitely live. We will live and greet you, Master. Starting with Manho, they all fell prostrate before me. We will survive. For you, Master. Maybe, for the first time since establishing this master and disciple relationship. It was a moment when the hearts of the master and disciples connected. Thus, we were successful in opening our hearts before the final battle. And the day of the decisive battle arrived. Chapter 32, Life 7. On the day of the decisive battle, during the waiting time outside the imperial city, I began to read a book carefully. But why did you ask for that? Kim Young-hoon asked, looking puzzled as he saw me reading. The book I was reading had no title. It was a manuscript written by Kim Young-hoon. In the first regression, Kim Young-hoon, who became the best martial artist in the world and reached the 5 energies converging to the origin realm, created the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts in order to allow martial artists to escape from cultivators. The record was further improved upon and evolved into the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts by the second regression Kim Young-hoon. It was meant to give martial artists a lifeline against cultivators. The record became gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts scripture after the third regression Kim Young-hoon added 6 volumes regarding his insights fighting and escaping from cultivators. The fourth regression Kim Young-hoon integrated and simplified the 6 volumes into the secrets of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, which paved the way for a new realm. The nameless book I was reading right now was the evolved version of the secrets of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, further advanced by this regression's Kim Young-hoon through endless battles against cultivators. If the scripture and secrets discussed transition from the 5 energies to the next realm, the nameless book detailed the extreme resentment seen in the new realm. Of course, I don't understand even when I'm reading it. The complexity of this martial arts system, evolved again from the secrets of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, was beyond my comprehension. Kim Young-hoon, noticing my struggle, clicked his tongue and said, "You don't need to force yourself to understand. This is not a completed martial art." Not completed? Martial art should be passed down. Even though I've become an unparalleled great master, I will die someday. But my martial arts live on as my legacy, proving my existence. Thus, the completion of a martial art is in its transmission, he explained, glancing at the book in my hand. Its minimum entry requirement is 5 energies converging to the origin. Just as a first-rate cannot understand the world of the pinnacle, and an early peak cannot understand the world of 3 flowers gather at the summit. Anyone below 5 energies cannot comprehend this martial art system. It's incomplete because it can't be properly transmitted. So it's complete but incomplete due to its extremely high entry barrier? I summarized. Right. This martial art needs to be adapted so that it can be understood even by those at the level of 3 flowers. As I listened, I smiled slyly. Is there a need for that? In my opinion, just give it to a warrior who can reach the 5 energies or someone with Kim Hyung's level of talent. There's no need to simplify it for them. Unhyun. Talent like mine in martial arts comes once in 1,000 years. I assure you, my talent is almost implausibly high. That is true. This is how I felt seeing him evolve his martial arts to a new realm every regression and faster each time. But don't worry, Kim Hyung. I'll pass down this martial art to you in the next regression. His martial arts will always be passed down without the need for simplification, because I will always ensure its transmission. Anyway, how about naming this martial art? I suggested. A name, he pondered and then smiled. Gazing at cultivators, eventually surpassing the limits of martial arts, and condensing these secrets. The creator of secrets of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts probably spent his life just observing cultivators, and that's how it ended. He could never surpass them. However, I have surpassed the secrets of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts and discovered the possibility of surpassing cultivators. With my current level, I won't be inferior in a battle against late-stage chi-building cultivators. If I ambush a core formation cultivator, I can inflict significant injuries. He wrote characters in the air. The energy flowing from his fingertips beautifully illuminated the void. Surpassing cultivators, surpassing the martial arts framework, and recording the achievements. Record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts. That was the name of the newly evolved martial arts record. Record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts. Reminiscent of the combination of record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts and record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts. Seeing the name, I recalled the Young-hoons of the first and second regressions. Their unfulfilled wishes were slowly being realized. With a slow smile, I put the fully read record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts in my chest pocket. Having memorized the record, I could pass it on again, even if I died today. Let's go, Kim Hyung. Yes, it's about time. Today, the imperial family of Yangwo will change. Whoosh! In the skies above Seokyung City, blue and red lights flashed. It signaled the end of the agreement between the Jin and Mokli clans. Now, we just need to enter. Flash! Blue lights burst from the eastern, western, southern, and northern gates of Seokyung City. At the same time, red lights also burst from the southeast, southwest, northwest, and northeast directions. Lights from the Mokli and Jin clan cultivators intermingled above the city, casting their magical influence over Seokyung City. Rumble. A barrier conjured by the 2 cultivator clans enveloped the city. As it formed, ordinary pedestrians began to stagger and collapse. Anyone below the mid-first-rate lost consciousness and fell on the streets, while late first-rate warriors barely resisted the barrier's influence with their weapons. But even they would succumb if they lost focus for even a moment. Now, only the masters who had entered the world of intent remained conscious inside Seokyung City. Even among them, those who had recently entered the pinnacle realm and couldn't constantly operate in the world of intent would soon faint. Terrifying. The terror of cultivators wasn't just about individual strength. It was about their formations and mystical abilities. A formation powerful enough to seize a city in an instant, laid by just 8 chi-building cultivators. Even that was because the Jin and Mokli clan cultivators were mutually restraining each other. In reality, just 4 of them could have set up this formation. No wonder they treat ordinary people like insects. They wouldn't even acknowledge or listen to us. But still, there is basic human decency. Being born human, asserting oneself as a human, there are obligations that come with it. I clenched my teeth, recalling the atrocities of the Mockley clan. As long as I can, I will stop you. Swoosh. As soon as the barrier formed, I used my movement technique towards the Imperial City. Simultaneously, my disciples and Kim Young-hoon's followers, who were lying in wait around Seokyung City, picked up their weapons and moved out. Additionally, over 100 cultivators from the Jin clan in red robes flew above us on their flying devices. Inside the barrier of Seokyung City, a deep blue barrier spread around the Imperial Palace. The defensive barrier looked thick at first glance. Inside, cultivators from the Mockley clan in blue robes strengthened the formation and prepared their spells. Just then, Kim Young-hoon took flight. Boom, boom. He stepped on the air, rising, and stretched out his hand. Everyone, prepare to enter. His voice seemed to cover the entire Seokyung City. Kim Young-hoon, floating in the air, gently extended his palm. A round sphere of Gang Chi emerged from his hand. That is, I observed the new realm he had achieved. The bright sphere split into three Gang Chi spheres, but they split again around Kim Young-hoon, forming 9 spheres. 9 Gang spheres lined up behind him. Then, they arranged around him. Bang, bang, bang. The 9 spheres struck the barrier over the Imperial Palace, creating 9 holes. Enter. Crash. The Jin clan cultivators threw their talismans which stuck to the holes in the barrier, preventing its repair. The cultivators from the Mockley clan seemed surprised by the size of the openings created by Kim Young-hoon's strike. Swoosh. I used Mountain Lord's soaring flight, scaling the outer wall of the Imperial Palace and entering through the hole Kim Young-hoon had made. A mortal has entered. Block. Severing Vein Saber method, Mountain Wind. Thud. My piercing strike, filled with sword gang, penetrated the shouting Mockley cultivator's mouth, creating a hole in his medulla. Severing Mountain Swordsmanship, 9th move. Landscape painting. Boom, boom, boom. My sword filled with sword gang wildly slashed in every direction. Though it seemed haphazard, each strike followed the optimal trajectory. Each perfect trajectory smashed the defensive spells of the lower-grade cultivators of the Mockley clan, tearing their bodies apart. In the hole at the outer wall of the Imperial Palace where I was located, a mist of blood formed around me in an instant. Ugh, a peak martial artist. Everyone, use the jiangshi as shields and prepare spells from the rear. Screech, screech. Thus, the battle unfolded with an intensity that shook the very foundations of Seokyung City. Second move, entering mountain. 14th move, Chi Mountain, Heart Heaven. Connecting technique. Chi Mountain's entry path. Whoosh. Switching to a lower stance, I opened up the meridians, expanding the force of my energy and slicing widely through my opponents. Swish boom. In a single move, the attacking jiangshi had their legs severed and fell to the ground. Deep Mountain. Ascending Vein. Charging in with Mountain Lord's soaring flight, I entered the embrace of a cultivator chanting from behind and cut him upwards. Crack. My sword gang pierced through the cultivator's defensive spell, splitting his body diagonally. How can this mortal? The other astounded cultivators used some kind of spell. Swoosh. Floom. Boom. A water orb and wind blades, along with the Een ring, were cast towards me from different directions. Secluded Valley. Along with Secluded Valley, I used Record of Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts to penetrate the intents behind the spells, twisting the direction of their power. Rotating in place, I neutralized all 3 spell attacks. The spells didn't even brush my clothes. What? Bouldered Cliff. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Crack. Spinning in place, I shot Circular Sword Gang at the confused cultivators. Before they could use another spell, they were shredded by my sword gang breaking through their defenses. Flesh and blood sprayed in all directions, filling the air with the scent of blood. My commotion drew the attention of all the cultivators. Stop that martial artist first. Deploy all the jiangshi. Drive him out. Hundreds of jiangshi, oozing with poison, rushed towards me. Meanwhile, others began to enter through the hole behind me. Boom. 314 of my disciples, each armed, lined up behind me. Clean up. I'll go inside first. After giving a brief order, I headed below the outer wall. Led by Manho, my disciples nodded briefly before clashing with the horde of jiangshi. Whoosh. I jumped down from the outer wall. A cool wind rose from below. And then, boom. A spear was hurled at me with a breaking sound. It's awkward to dodge, and if I parry in midair, I'm at a disadvantage. Quick judgment. In an instant, I swung my sword against the outer wall. Crack. After emitting sword silk and embedding my sword into the wall, I used it as a support to leap up again. Then, I powered my legs and deflected the spear with a spin. Clang. My counterattack, optimally executed, sent the spear flying back, and I quickly pulled my sword from the wall, using heavy fall technique to quickly land on the ground. Martial artists, including the one who threw the spear at me, started to gather around. Long time no see, everyone. Shut up, villain. We've never seen someone like you. Faces I had seen during my time in the Shadow Guards. The chief and deputy chief of the Imperial Outer Defense Force, the admiral and deputies of the Golden Army, and the generals of the United Guard. Faces I had occasionally seen. Although their relationship with the Shadow Guards was indifferent, as we were supposed to hide in the shadows. It's a bit tricky to kill them. They were just following orders. What fault did they have? Each was simply acting out of the loyalty they were taught. Don't worry. I won't kill you. It's harder not to kill cultivators due to their defensive spells. But against these people, it's much easier. Fling. Infinite fighting hidden weapon technique, straight snake. The quickly thrown weapon lodged in the shoulder of the Outer Defense Force chief. Coated with poison, he would soon be paralyzed. I took an antidote from my pocket and scattered paralysis powder in all directions. Infinite fighting hidden weapon technique, illusionary snake mist. Several weapons accurately grazed the bodies of the deputy chief and United Guard generals beyond the paralysis powder. I coated my sword tip with poison, and using Deep Mountain, I lunged at the generals of the United Guard and the admiral of the Golden Army, lightly cutting their skin. What remained were the deputies of the Golden Army. Infinite fighting hidden weapon technique, double killing snake. Swish, swish. Two weapons flew in different trajectories towards them, and in that moment, I regrasped my sword stance. Severing vein saber method, mountain wind. Fling. A rapid thrust pierced the deputies trying to block the hidden weapons, and the poison on my sword tip entered their bodies, causing them to collapse soon after. They're not fatally poisoned, so they can be detoxified later in the Imperial Medical Hall. The Imperial physician is a bit better than me, so he should be able to decipher the mixture. I left the twitching peak masters lying in foam behind me and surveyed the layout of the surrounding buildings. The emergency shelter for the Emperor in case of emergency is the Hidden Dragon Hall. Officially, that is. But as the former deputy leader of the Shadow Guards who closely guarded the Emperor, I knew. The actual shelter is the glowing scenery pavilion located beyond the northwest corner of the Imperial City. During my time in the Shadow Guards, I didn't understand why I had to guard a cultivator emperor, nor did I understand why such a shelter existed. After all, neither the commoners' rebellion nor the army could match up to them, so why the need for such a shelter? But now I understand. It's a place prepared in case other cultivator clans conspire to usurp the imperial throne. Screech. More Jiangshi than I saw from the outer wall screamed and rushed towards me, easily hundreds in number. Apparently, they were just released en masse to entangle any intruders. Snap. How many people were sacrificed to create these Jiangshi? I gritted my teeth and gripped my sword. It should be about time now. Thud. At that thought, my disciples jumped down from the outer wall below. Any casualties? None at all. Thank you. Have you cleaned up everything? We've only dealt with the Jiangshi. The remaining Mokli cultivators are engaged in combat with the martial arts experts brought by Sir Kim and the Jin clan cultivators. Good. From now on, everyone will follow me. We will go to where the Emperor is. Yes. At my words, my disciples shouted excitedly. First, we break through the Jiangshi horde. Since they're just to entangle us, there's no need to kill them all. Everyone, form a wedge. Leading the way, my disciples lined up behind me in a triangular formation. Let's break through. Yes, peak masters of this level, with their internal energy, is equivalent to a cavalry in terms of power and speed. Although fewer in number, their strength and speed are in no way inferior. I ran ahead, allowing my disciples to follow, infusing my sword with sword gang. Severing mountain swordsmanship, fourth move. Flowing ridge. As I called out the sword moves, just like we practiced during training, my disciples assumed their appropriate stances and connected their positions. While a standard formation typically unifies weapons, to peak masters who can read intent, such variability is not a flaw. Instead, they break through by compensating for each other's weaknesses. Boom. Initially a straightforward stabbing technique, it transformed with the force of breakthrough, erupting like a clash of chariots, shattering the Jiangshi before us. Qi Mountain, Heart Heaven. I opened my meridians wide and pulled forth even more sword gang. Rumble. Leading from the front, I mowed down the Jiangshi, making my way through. The disciples on my flanks also infused energy into their weapons, shaking off and breaking through the Jiangshi. Hundreds of peak masters carved a path through the black ocean of Jiangshi. This is it. As we tore through, the dividing wall of the Imperial Palace came into view, severing mountain swordsmanship, mountain and valley transformation. Unleashing sword gang, I demolished the wall and altered the nearby landscape. I then positioned myself at the forefront and made my way through the collapsed wall. My disciples on the flanks quickly closed in from a wedge formation to a parallel I formation. Following through the gap I created, my disciples streamed in like a tail. Entering through the wall, the Imperial Garden, Gowan, came into sight. Formations lie ahead. Fortunately, they weren't too strong, and I knew all the life gates of the formations. Life gates in cultivation stories are basically the exit points in formations and arrays. Everyone, follow exactly behind me. Recalling the life gates spread around Goawan, I stepped through them, unraveling the formations as I went. My disciples followed precisely, and the Jiangshi, lacking this knowledge, aimlessly entered Goawan but couldn't penetrate the interior, just circling around. At the edge of Goawan, another wall appeared. Having already shaken off the Jiangshi, instead of hastily breaking the wall, I used Mountain Lord's soaring flight to leap over it and landed on the other side. A quiet, small pavilion floated on a little lake, devoid of people. My disciples also streamed in behind me. Master, there's no one here. Without a word, I raised my sword gang and launched it towards the pavilion. Boom. Simultaneously, my sword gang collided with an invisible barrier around the pavilion and dissipated. This is the place. Kawa, shoot the flare. Before I finished speaking, a crackling sound came from behind, and a flare shot up into the sky. Whoosh bang. A 5-colored cloud exploded in the sky. Simultaneously, about 5 Jin clan cultivators in red robes flew towards us on their flying devices. The Emperor is here. Well done. We'll dismantle the formation. The Jin clan cultivators, still on their flying devices, took positions around the pavilion and cast their spells. Flash. A bright light burst, shattering the invisible wall, revealing the Emperor and the palace guards, previously hidden in the pavilion. Dozens of cultivators in blue robes from the Mokli clan were waiting in the pavilion. The face of Mokli Jung twisted like a vengeful ghost. Damn it. How did you find this place? Only the palace guards and the shadow guards know about the glowing scenery pavilion. Boom. As Mokli Jung shouted, one of the Jin clan cultivators who had dismantled the formation launched another flare. This time, a white smoke cloud. A signal that the Emperor has been confirmed to be found. At the same time, boom. Dozens of Jin clan cultivators who were pushing back the Mokli clan cultivators on the outer wall began flying towards us. The Jin clan cultivators arriving at the lake quickly took up positions. As light burst forth, they formed a formation. Heat. Roar. A fireball the size of 10 meters appeared in the sky. Go. Simultaneously, the fireball created by the Jin clan's formation plunged towards the pavilion. Rumble. Besides the illusion formation hiding its appearance, several other barrier formations, seemingly layered, enveloped the pavilion in a blue sphere. Hiss. However, the fireball evaporated all the water around the pavilion, wrapping the area in steam. Through the steam, wind and een spells shot towards the Jin clan cultivators in the sky. The Mokli clan cultivators inside the barrier started to move out. A Jin clan cultivator cast a spell and shouted at me. Hey, mortal. We'll handle the cultivators. You break through the palace guards. The barrier is weakened enough by the previous attack. You should be able to penetrate it with your sword gang. Understood. I responded to the Jin clan cultivator and dived into the now dry lake towards the pavilion. As I neared the pavilion, bang, a halberd thrust out from the shadow beneath the pavilion. Clang. I deflected the halberd and smiled at my opponent. Leader of the Shadow Guard, Tiger Slaughtering Halberd, Kwok Il Guk. Long time no see. Translator notes. Regarding the part about record of surpassing cultivation and marital arts being a combination of the previous records is because exceeding, transcending, and surpassing are all the same word in the ROS, as I mentioned before in a previous translator note. So the direct translation of the new martial art would be record of surpassing cultivation and surpassing martial arts, or record of transcending cultivation and exceeding martial arts, a combination of the words transcending cultivation and exceeding martial arts. Of course, I translated it as surpassing cultivation and martial arts to make it easier to differentiate, and it's shorter to type. On that note, I rant. This bastard Kim Young-hoon can't name for his life. Of all 5, and even more books later on, they're all a pain in the ass to type, and I can barely remember their names in the Korean ROS. They're all wool this and wool that. I have to use the frickin' wiki to make sure I get them right. Chapter 33, Life, 8. Kwok Il Guk twitched his eyes. Do you know me? Of course. I am Seo Eun-hyun, known as Infinite Fighting Monster. Pleasure to meet you. As I greeted him with a polite bow, he seemed a bit perplexed. Strange. I don't know someone like you. I haven't heard of Infinite Fighting Monster in the martial arts world, nor in the intelligence service. Haha, naturally. I've never engaged in martial arts activities in this lifetime. At my words, Leader looked at me as if I was speaking nonsense. Meanwhile, red threads extended from him, aiming for my neck. But I read all his moves with my purple intent and countered his initial moves with a convergence of intent. He seemed to put all his effort into our clash of intents, and I spoke to my disciples behind me. Look, this is the power of the Shadow Guards. None of you can stand one-on-one against him in a clash of intents, right? Indeed. Tension filled my disciples' faces. Especially since I had constantly compared them to the Shadow Guards, the name must have left a significant impression in their minds. Leader in front of me was sweating profusely as he kept losing in our clash of intents, and I continued to explain while comfortably wielding my sword. If you face the entire Shadow Guards one-on-one, you're bound to lose. Each of them has reached the mature stage of mid-peak, where one can freely manipulate Chi Silk. While some can't manipulate Chi Silk, those types are even more dangerous, using poison or more sinister methods like me. The Palace Guards is also of similar strength to the Shadow Guards. The difference is that the Palace focuses on protecting the Emperor, while the Shadow is trained to kill assassins attacking the Emperor. I pointed to the Palace Guards on the pavilion, maintaining a solid stance and guarding against us. You will face the Palace Guards. They are superior in skills to you, but with your numbers and the transcending cultivation formation, you can break through. Your learned martial arts are more defensive, so you'll be relatively safer. Now, go and break through the Palace Guards, kill the Emperor, and fulfill your revenge. Yes, my disciples answered in unison, fervently. Red rage surged from them. I looked at Kwak-Il Guk, engaged in our clash of intents, and the entire Shadow Guards lurking in the shadows below the pavilion, ready to support him. The Shadow Guards I will handle. My disciples leaped over me, storming the pavilion. The Palace Guards drew their weapons and formed a defensive formation, with the Emperor beginning some sort of spell in the center. I, continuously launching intent, kept the entire Shadow Guards in check. Three flowers. Even a master in the late stage of 3 flowers. Kwak-Il Guk, struggling with our battle of intents, spoke with difficulty. Impressive, knowing it's the late stage. Have you entered the world of intent? Leader was on the boundary between mid and late peak. He might just be able to perceive the faint third color. Why would a genius like you, of your age, at that level, side with the rebels? Yanghua is enjoying peace now. As he spoke with sweat dripping, he gripped his halberd. I laughed sarcastically. Peace, surely, for the ordinary commoners, there's no better peace. But someone of your level must know that the motley imperial family of Yanghua are cultivators and what they are scheming in the shadows. I know, but you have joined hands with the former imperial family, the Jin. They are no different. They too are cultivators, and they see us as nothing more than tools. I acknowledge the fact calmly. You are right, leader. No one knows that fact better than me. I understood his views from my past life. The Jin clan wasn't much different. But being a tool is slightly better than being livestock waiting to be eaten. The Motley clan should no longer sit on the throne of Yanghua, the lesser of two evils. That's all. Of course, our views will never come to agreement. Come at me. I showed a small gap in my intent as a trap. The Shadow Guards, knowing it's a trap, still came at me gritting their teeth. Don't underestimate the power of the Shadow Guards. The leader's halberd lunged at me, and simultaneously, a member wielding a slashing sword aimed for my ankle. Behind me, a member with a two-handed sword lunged at me. Certainly, they were formidable forces. I remember even killing a master in the late stage of 3 flowers in a combined attack with them. A typical master of 3 flowers could be matched by the Shadow Guards. However, I had reached the late stage of 3 flowers gather at the summit and had learned records of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. In an instant, I cut through their consciousness and escaped the combined formation. Click. I slowly sheathed my sword in the midst of the melee. After all, these were colleagues from my past life. Of course, the people from my past life and those now are entirely different. But emotionally, it wasn't easy to harm them. I won't kill you. In an instant, my sword touched the vital points of the members. After scattering paralysis powder and subduing them all, I appeared in front of Leader and struck with my sword. Arg! Boom! Our weapons collided, sending out waves of energy. Realizing his men were subdued, despair filled Leader's eyes. You have no personal feelings. You only serve loyalty. Clang, clang. I pressed him with my sheathed sword, speaking calmly. So I won't kill you. Arg-ah. His intent surged more rapidly. I faced his intent head-on, slowly engaging in the battle, matching his moves, stance, and intent, almost like a mirror image, excluding the weapons and subtle martial arts. Leader, thinking I was mocking him, turned increasingly red. At a certain moment, his intent changed. Kwak-Il Guk's intent, which had failed to properly follow my trajectory, began to intertwine with mine, intermingling. Gradually, a sense of bewilderment crept into his eyes, which were previously ablaze with intensity. I led him on. Ting! My sword clashed with his halberd. At the same time, clarity returned to his eyes. He had seen the third color. This is... Lost in the midst of battle, he murmured in a daze. Boom! A tremendous shockwave and explosion spread out. His coordination faltered under the vast surge of energy. Eventually, my sheathed sword, which had been parallel to his, penetrated his coordination and struck his neck. Arg! He collapsed on the spot, unconscious, from my controlled strike. Anyway, having seen the third color, he should ascend to 3 flowers once he awakens and comprehends his realization. Though time had passed, and he was not the same person. It was the greatest respect I could show to my former superior. Leaving the unconscious leader behind, I turned towards a huge explosion that just gone off. Whoosh! A massive whirlwind tore apart and lifted an entire building in the distance. From the pavilion, the palace guards facing my disciples screamed in horror. The crown prince is there. Art, that location must be the hidden dragon hall. The emperor evacuated here, and the crown prince was in his place. Did Mok Li-young use his son as bait? But then, I frowned. That whirlwind's power doesn't seem like Mok Li-hyun's magic. In the center of the whirlwind, a dark shadow loomed. An imposing presence. Seeing the size of the consciousness in the whirlwind's center, I realized. That person is the founder of Yinghua, the cultivator of the Mok Li clan who reached Qi building. Mok Li Wangxin. Around the whirlwind, someone was moving. It was Kim Young-hoon. That's... Kim Young-hoon held something in one hand. Focusing my vision, it looked like someone's head. It must be Crown Prince Mok Li-hyun's head, given the circumstances. I thought Mok Li-young had hidden in the glowing scenery pavilion with the palace and shadow guards, using his son as bait. It seems I was mistaken. It wasn't about leaving his son as bait in the hidden dragon hall. Instead, he had placed the strongest guard there. However, this was the result. Kim Young-hoon's understanding of the record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts, derived from the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts that is specialized in escaping and ambushing cultivators, allowed him to catch Mok Li Wangxin off guard. Whoosh! Numerous wind bullets and wind blades shot towards Kim Young-hoon from the whirlwind. A single wind bullet obliterated an entire floor of a building. The monstrous power of a Qi building cultivator. But, boom, boom, boom. 9 spheres rose behind Kim Young-hoon and shot towards the Qi building cultivator. Bang! With a loud noise, the gang spheres pierced part of the whirlwind, bringing down an entire building. The imperial city crumbled under their battle. Arg, what is this? These cursed Jin clan, breaking the agreement and secretly bringing a Qi building cultivator into the barrier. The cultivators of the Mok Li clan burst into fury and cast their spells. The Jin clan cultivators just smirked, not responding. However, Mok Li-young, performing spells in the center of the pavilion, burst into a hearty laugh. Ha ha! What's everyone so worried about? Our ancestor recently achieved a breakthrough in his training, ascending to the 3rd stage. Even core formation is just around the corner. Do you think he would lose to a mere cultivator? Hearing that, the Jin clan cultivators' expressions darkened. Already at that stage. Just a Qi building cultivator. Can we really hold out? Unlike others, I climbed onto the pavilion with a light heart. Not to mention the record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts. Kim Young-hoon had already killed a late Qi building cultivator and severed the hand of a core formation cultivator when he created the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. There's no chance of defeat. The interior of the pavilion seemed much larger than from the outside, perhaps due to a space condensing spell. In the center, the emperor who was performing spells was protected by the palace guards around him. The guards were desperately blocking my disciples' combined attack, but they were overwhelmingly outnumbered and faced the transcending cultivation formation. There was no way they could win. Let's finish this quickly. I too drew my sword gang, ready to enter the formation, when suddenly, boom, another loud noise tore off the roof of the pavilion. What's this? Confused by the sudden turn of events. Swoosh! Blood rained from the sky, splattering down. The guards and my disciples were baffled, but the cultivators and I were shocked. The intent in the blood. The terrifying consciousness within. It was the Qi building cultivator who had just been fighting Kim Young-hoon. His soul, his divine consciousness, was in that blood. In such a short time, Kim Young-hoon had killed Mok Li Wangxin, the Qi building cultivator of the Mok Li clan. The blood containing the divine consciousness of the founding emperor, Mok Li Wangxin, shot towards the stupefied Mok Li-young. The emperor's face began to show terror. An ancestor. No, this can't be. Ancestor, please, spare me. Yeah. Ancestor, please, please. Splash. Mok Li-young screamed in horror, but the indifferent blood splashed onto his face. Aoaig. Mok Li-young's screams echoed for a while, and after a moment, shiver, I shouted at the top of my lungs. Everyone, retreat. Fortunately, my disciples instinctively backed away in terror, but the palace guards, protecting Mok Li-young, failed to grasp the situation and couldn't evade the founding emperor's grasp as he possessed the emperor's body. Swoosh. Aoaig. Arg. The life force and essence blood of the palace guards was being sucked into Mok Li-young. No, into Mok Li Wangxin, who had taken over Mok Li-young's body. Whoosh. A massive consciousness filled the entire pavilion. Dangerous. Mok Li Wangxin extended his hand. His gesture was pointing at me, the highest level presence here. Then it happened. A flash of light burst from outside the pavilion. Boom. Mok Li Wangxin, who was gathering his power against me, hastily extended his hand towards outside the pavilion, deploying a defensive spell. A violent wind blew, breaking his defensive spell like fragile glass. Half of the pavilion affected by the spatial spell was torn away. There, I could see Kim Young-hoon slowly approaching. Kim Hyung. My face turned pale. Kim Young-hoon was bleeding all over, with a chunk of his flesh torn from his waist. Cough, cough. It seems his internal organs were damaged too, as he was spitting blood with every step he took. Kim Young-hoon didn't kill Mokli Wangshin without harm. Mokli Wangshin had inflicted considerable damage on Kim Young-hoon, even as he was being killed. Cough. Then, Kim Young-hoon, who seemed to be regathering his strength, suddenly lost consciousness due to his severe wounds and collapsed. This is the worst. Shiver. Mokli Wangshin, gasping for breath, spoke. Fortunately, his energy just dropped in the nick of time. What a monstrous man. I was almost killed. Stomp, stomp. He kicked away the bodies of the fallen guards around him, clicking his tongue in disgust. Damn it. Having to take over the body of such a low-quality descendant. Even my cultivation has dropped to the level of Qi refining 4th star. He looked up at the sky. Simultaneously, the Mokli clan cultivators fighting the Jin clan cultivators started fleeing in panic on their flying devices. These worthless things, running away in front of the clan elder. Once this replacement battle is over, I'll have to melt them all into a handful of blood water. Swoosh. The consciousness of the terrifying Qi-building cultivator soared into the sky. Mokli Wangshin's consciousness transformed into a hand shape, reaching out for 2 Qi refining 1st star cultivators trying to escape. As Mokli Wangshin cast a spell, faint light circled around the hand of consciousness, and it seemed to physically pull in the lower-level cultivators. Elder, please spare us. Please. I am a distant relative of ancestor. I have never had descendants who are no better than trash mortals. As he extended his hand towards the Qi refining cultivators, their life force, essence, blood, and cultivation were all sucked into Mokli Wangshin. Slurp. Gulp. After devouring his blood water-turned descendants, Mokli Wangshin's power surged from Qi refining 4th to the brink of 5th. Qi refining 5th star cultivation. But one who once reached the extreme of Qi building. Tingle, tingle. Normally, I could rush in and slit the throat of a cultivator of this level, but my instincts were ringing alarm bells. It's not just Qi refining 5th star. Combined with the consciousness of a cultivator who had reached the peak of Qi building, his power is... Our eyes met. A crawling sensation surged over my body. Mokli Wangshin smirked. Quite perceptive for a mortal. Assessing my power? Let me tell you kindly. The strength I can exert right now is... Rumble. Wind swirled around Mokli Wangshin. A wind incomparable to that of Mokli Hyun enveloped him. The level of Qi refining 13th star. I gritted my teeth. To all disciples, listen. I needed to buy time. Feed Kim Hyung the recovery pills each of you brought. Do your best to make him regain consciousness. I took the primary sword stance. I'll stall for time. Severing mountain swordsmanship. 23rd move. I'll hold on no matter what. Endless mountains beyond mountains. Chapter 34, Endless mountains beyond mountains.山外山不盡. I took the primary sword stance. Severing mountain swordsmanship. First move, transcending peaks. Whoosh. A whirlwind. A whirlwind made of thousands, tens of thousands of wind blades, shredding the entire pavilion and ascending towards the fireball. When the whirlwind touched the fireball completely shattered and dispersed. The Jin clan cultivators who had created the formation all spat blood and retreated. Ha ha ha, mortals. You dare to block my attack? Do you understand what it means to have been at Qi building? A dark shadow shone through the whirlwind. Mokli Wangshin, in the center of the whirlwind, chuckled at me. Now try to block this. Feel what it's like to face someone at Qi refining 13th star. Squee. A giant rock, made of wind, flew towards me. The scale of the spell was incomparable to the spell previously shown by Crown Prince Mokli Hyun. This one spell alone seemed to cover the entire lake where the pavilion was. I can't dodge. My disciples haven't all escaped with Kim Young-hoon yet. I must stand my ground. Severing mountain swordsmanship. 22nd move. Severing mountain. The techniques from the 1st to the 21st moves of severing mountain swordsmanship burst out in an instant. Then, gathering strength with the final move of Heavenly Lake, I unleashed another strike. Swoosh. The rock made of wind didn't completely shatter, but it split in half and flew past me on both sides. Huh. I steadied my breath. Then, back to the primary stance I had initially taken, preparing for transcending peaks. Mokli Wangshin, having blocked the Jin clan's flame spell, chuckled. Oh, you blocked it once. Quite a big stroke of luck. Let's see how long that luck lasts. And also, flash. Suddenly, a whirlwind blew, and a blue barrier appeared over the entire lake. The Jin clan cultivators gritted their teeth. This is a barrier. Is he trying to prevent us from escaping? Mokli Wangshin grinned at Kim Young-hoon and my disciples, who were trying to escape across the lake. I can't let that damn man who blew up my body escape. First, I'll crush those Jin clan flies and this martial artist, then slowly flay that despicable man. Boom. Once again, he formed a seal, and a dragon made of wind burst from the whirlwind surrounding Mokli Wangshin and swooped down towards me. I clenched my teeth and raised my sword. The chi-building cultivator of the Mokli clan, Mokli Wangshin, calmed his burning anger and used his spells methodically. He had worked his entire life to surpass chi-building, reaching the peak of chi-building. If things had gone well, he might have even aimed for core formation in this lifetime. But everything was ruined by that monstrous man, the Jin clan's final weapon. Although the monster's consciousness was only at the chi-refining 4th or 5th star, he had evaded his own perception, beheaded his descendant Mokli Hyun, and used some strange techniques, eventually killing him. At least it was a replacement battle. If it had been a real battle with no relatives nearby, he wouldn't have dared to resurrect by taking over a descendant's body. However, upon resurrection, he realized that the descendant, Mokli Young, whom he had taken over, was essentially trash. If only I could have taken over that Mokli Hyun's body. But that was impossible since the martial artist had beheaded him. I had hope of reaching core formation. With such inferior quality, it was doubtful he could even recover his peak chi-building cultivation, let alone reach core formation. It was all because of that Jin clan martial artist. Therefore, Mokli Wangshin planned to crush all the Jin clan flies and the martial artist who seemed to have ties with him, and then leisurely flay the Jin clan's final weapon, pickling his flesh. It should have been swift. What? But the martial artist, brandishing iron scrap, was not going down. This mortal, he just wouldn't fall. Despite numerous powerful spells, he stood up like a roly-poly every time, using his sword gang to deflect his spells. I thought mortals' dantians couldn't hold as much energy as cultivators. Why wasn't he getting tired? More so. Another step. Squish. One step. One step. Slowly. He was approaching. Annoying. He was already annoyed by the Jin clan flies casting spells, and allowing this martial artist to approach would distract his consciousness. I'll have to use a larger spell, even if it's a bit strenuous. Mokli Wangshin raised his spiritual power, preparing a larger spell. The whirlwind surrounding him rides furiously. Then, with a massive roar, it takes the form of a wind tiger and flies towards the unyielding martial artist. Huh. Your internal energy must be completely depleted by now. Stop resisting and rest easy. You should feel honored that I used such a spell on you. Just then, boom. With a slash of the martial artist's sword, the wind tiger sent by Mokli Wangshin splits in half. What is this? And again, step. The martial artist takes another step forward. Do you have infinite internal energy or something? How can you still have the strength to use such techniques? And another step. Cutting through the wind, the martial artist slowly, very slowly, advances towards him. I've seen him continuously maintain his sword gang. How can he still have so much energy left? Impossible. What trick are you playing, you mortal? One step. With each step, Mokli Wangshin's expression began to distort. Severing Mountain Swordsmanship, 23rd move. Endless mountains beyond mountains. This technique wasn't a special move or action, but a concept reached upon mastering the Severing Mountain Swordsmanship to a certain level. I wield my sword. I cut through the wind patterns. Then, I return to the primary stance. Everything reverts to the primary stance, restoring all the energy and internal strength I had expended. Breathing in, the internal energy that was about to be exhausted is pulled back into my dantian with my breath. The internal energy that leaked from the sword gang is also recaptured and forcibly returned to the dantian. Regardless of the technique used, I revert to the basic stance, returning the flow of qi to its initial state. A technique that theoretically allows for infinite stamina, as it prevents the depletion of internal energy. That is the essence of endless mountains beyond mountains. However, it's only theoretically infinite. The moment I stop performing this technique for even an instant, the accumulated qi backlashes, draining all my energy and causing immense pain. I experience this pain during practice sessions. I cannot stop. As there are endless mountains beyond mountains, I too must be endless. Therefore, it's a technique to be performed with the readiness to face death. Whoosh. From transcending peaks to severing mountain. I keep swinging my sword nonstop, linking sword moves continuously. After performing all moves, I return to the stance of transcending peaks, maintaining endless mountains beyond mountains. My swordsmanship's power remains unchanged. Mokli Wangshin's spiritual power might decrease over time, but my techniques remain constant. However, after piercing through a wind bird with mountain tiger, I return to the stance of transcending peaks. I feel like I'm dying. Not depleting internal energy doesn't mean not depleting mental strength. I focus intently to prevent the waste of internal strength with each move, then revert back with endless mountains beyond mountains to forcibly recapture the expended energy back to the Dantian. This continuous process is excruciating, like boiling my brain. Bubbling. Despite being conscious and not fainting, the heat in my head makes saliva in my mouth boil into foam. Spurt. Blood bursts from my eyes and nose. Forcing the energy back into my body strains not only my meridians, but also makes me feel like my limbs will snap. But still, whoosh. You're cutting this down as well. I refuse to give up. Give up, martial artist. It seems you're somehow recycling your limited internal energy. If you stop your sword for even a single instant, you'll self-destruct from the recoil. Mokli Wangshin sneers, but I pay no heed. I just keep swinging my sword. Wind birds, wind dragons, wind unicorns, wind Kirin, wind sharks. Numerous spell forms assault me, but I keep cutting, blocking, deflecting, counterattacking. Thus, step by step, I approach. Spurt. My tendons, strained from the continuous moves, burst. My arms are filled with pain as if it's tearing apart. When the tendons snap, my arms lose strength. But I connect the tendons with internal energy and again perform the sword moves. Horizontal slash, upward slash, lower level slash, smooth thrust, spinning slash, change in technique, diagonal slash, twist and nullify the attack, diagonal slash flurry, powerful downward slash, varying speed upward slash, shoot sword gang. And then repeat it all from the beginning. Crack. What's that sound? Yes, it must be my bones splitting. But I do not stop. Give up. Rumble. Mokli Wangshin's words become a verbal spell, enveloping everything. His voice, imbued with consciousness, makes the souls of my disciples in my upper Dantian cry out. Screech. A horrific wail resounds in my head. Behind me, my disciples who had been watching also clutch their heads and roll on the ground. You must have forcibly absorbed souls into your upper Dantian to enhance your lacking talent. After all, there's no other way to mass-produce so many peak martial artists with mere mortals. But, for someone with the consciousness of a chi-building cultivator, it's too easy to stimulate those vengeful spirits and incapacitate you all. Give up, you mortals will never be able to stand against cultivators. I'm just 20 steps away from Mokli Wangshin. Behind me is a trail of blood, shaped by my footsteps. My internal energy is the same as before, but the slowly flowing blood is now gradually diminishing. Between me and Mokli Wangshin is the whirlwind he created. Can I break through? How dare you? Get lost. Mokli Wangshin's verbal spell shakes my mind again. Hundreds of disciples' souls in my head scream, and I spurt blood from my nose and mouth. My head turns white, but even in this pain, I keep moving my sword. I've moved it thousands, tens of thousands of times, continuously training and practicing. Even while teaching my disciples, I never let go of my sword. Because I was attached. Maybe even in death, I might keep swinging my sword. So, this sword, will not give up. I will not let go. One step, another step, one step, one more. Step by step, step by step, step by step. Spewing blood from my mouth, unable to see ahead due to blood, but still, step by step. I keep moving slowly, but steadily. Thus, I keep moving forward. Splash, splash. Even the Jin clan cultivators wandering in the air burst into blood rain one by one under Mokli Wangshin's attack. But only I keep steadily approaching him. A look of dread emerges on Mokli Wangshin's face. The color of his consciousness reflects the same. Those behind me. Cheek. A wind blade from Mokli Wangshin tears a chunk from my waist. A terrifying wind tears the skin from my sword-wielding hand. I will not let them die. Boom. The sword gang erupts from my sword, piercing Mokli Wangshin's whirlwind. I see his startled face. What is this? Just then, suddenly, I see the seventh color that I've never been able to see before. No, it's not seeing. It's knowing. I see. Joy, anger, sorrow, pleasure, love, hate, and finally, desire. My greatest desire was ultimately life. Therefore, the color of my desire was the color of life. What color is life? Look up at the void. Life is full of colors, full of lives. Life is essentially many colors, and therefore, it is complete in itself. Hence, the color of life is infinitely transparent, colorless. Because it is all colors, it is colorless. That's right. I've been seeing my desire's color from the beginning. Colorless. Since it has no color, it is all colors, and I've been seeing all the colors of life from the beginning. Realizing the color of life for the first time, I found the answer to the question I had been searching for. How can humans know infinite colors? How can humans reach beyond 3 flowers gather at the summit to 5 energies converging to the origin? Simple. In fact, humans, all beings, cannot be infinite. We must acknowledge that infiniteness and accept the infinite variations of colors. Maybe my reluctance to send my disciples away, my obstruction of their desired vengeance, was just my obsession arrogance, and ignorance. I never cared about their wishes from the beginning. In a world of infinite possibilities, one earns the right to see a new world. At life's end, I shed my obsessions and arrogance. By acknowledging my own emotions, I finally recognized the feelings of my disciples. My vision began to change. The 6 most fundamental colors, plus the completely transparent colorless. These 7 hues merge together, mixing, transforming, integrating. In this transformation, I see countless new colors, previously invisible. Though I can't perceive all these infinite colors, I sense their essence. What these colors represent, and how far I can see into this infinite realm of human emotion. My soul's microcosm opens, connecting with the heaven and earth. An infinite spectrum of colors intertwine and fully integrate. I now see the one color formed from all these hues. Colorless. The one color formed from all colors becomes completely transparent, starting to assimilate the surrounding space. Till now, I've only perceived the flow of intent through sight and sensation. Now, the flows between heaven and earth enter my mind through the space I've assimilated. Information from all surrounding spaces seem graspable in my hand. In this space of all-encompassing awareness, I launch a strike and take a step forward. How can a mere mortal awaken such consciousness? Exclaims Mokli Wangshin in astonishment. Perish, you lowly mortal. How dare you step into the realm of chi refining? His consciousness resonates, and the spirits of my disciples scream within my mind. Despite reaching this new realm, their agonizing cries still cause pain. Yet, within their wails, I understand why I awakened the 7th color. I can now hear them. Don't die. Please live. We wish for your survival. The voices of my deceased disciples aren't just cries, they're fervent desires. The will to live. The same yearning for life I always had. These myriad voices have led me here. I speak out, blood gushing, but undeterred, shouting with all my might. My disciples, both the living and the departed, though my foolishness has caused you pain, now I will end this source of suffering. Survive. Survive and experience this beautiful, transparent life. My sword gang shines with a brightness that cannot be compared to ever before. Let your momentum rival the mountains. Let your heart reach the heavens. Chi Mountain, Heart Heaven. I open every meridian, squeezing out the last vestige of chi. Only 5 steps from Mokli Wangshin. My sword gang pierces through Mokli Wangshin's whirlwinds and defenses. Persistent vermin, you still defy me. He bellows, but to no avail. He attempts to flee to the sky, but it does nothing but relieve my concern for his wide area spells. Haha, once you go up to the sky, what can a guy like you do? There's no more internal energy left in my body, but I still have my willpower left. Record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. Ultimate skill. The final and ultimate technique pursued by Record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts so far. The last secret technique to create a slight chance to escape in front of a cultivator. Record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. Endless middle path. All my intent converge into one point. That point, like the speed of light, penetrates the consciousness of Mokli Wangshin and delves into his upper dantian. Aakak. He grabs his head and falls back to the ground, starting by slicing through the domain of consciousness. In the end, the record delves into the deepest recesses of human consciousness, attacking the spirit itself, the ultimate skill. A strike that directly attacks the opponent's mind with my mental strength. An attack that could not be blocked by anything other than withstanding it with one's own mental strength. Stride forward. This guy. As he forms a hand seal, a sharp wind blade is shot towards me. There's no more internal energy left. I just slash with the most efficient movements. Swoosh. Both his wind blade and my sword shatter at the same time. Stride forward. Another step. Get away. Whoosh. I throw a hidden weapon at his leg to prevent him from retreating. Mokli Wangshin, without a moment to form a spell seal, wildly spews out his spiritual power. A violent windstorm approaches. Not a speck of internal energy or strength left. But, undeterred, I reach out my hand. Dropping the hilt of my broken sword, I approach him through the wind. Mokli Wangshin, having lived for 298 years, felt fear at the hands of a mere martial artist for the first time. He doesn't tire. He doesn't know how to give up. Mokli Wangshin forcefully controlled the resentful spirits implanted by the Jin clan, breaking through the Jin clan's spells and inducing their outburst. Despite the agonizing pain akin to being continuously beheaded, this madman doesn't give up. Even if flesh is torn, blood vomited, or sword broken, he doesn't give up and, somehow, even awakens a cultivator-like consciousness as a mere mortal. No, high-level spells aren't activating. Somehow, with the pain of his consciousness being carved out with a sword, part of his original spirit became damaged. He was unable to use any of his high-level spells, which were ordinarily easy to execute with simple hand gestures. He could still potentially cast high-level spells, but in his current state, he would need to perform the full ritual of forming hand seals and chanting mantras. And right there, the monstrous martial artist reaches out his hand. Think. He had defeated all the Jin clan cultivators. Just this leech-like martial artist is left, and victory was his. Right. He doesn't seem to have any qi in his body. Mokli Wangshin forcefully expels more spiritual power, pushing away Xiao Unhyun with a violent wind. It's my victory. Just then, it happened. The fundamental energy of heaven and earth began to stir. What's this? Mokli Wangshin, with a dumbfounded look, watched the flow of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. The 5 elements' spiritual energy. The 5 basic strands of spiritual energy, floating in the air, began to form a circle. Mokli Wangshin's eyes widened. Could it be? He had seen it before, written in ancient texts. A record that even mortals, through continuous training, can reach a state akin to a cultivator's 5 elements' spiritual roots. The sudden awakening of consciousness. The circular qi containing the 5 strands of elemental spiritual energy turned into 5 circles, swirling above Xiao Unhyun's head. Eventually, the 5 types of qi crumbled into a multicolored energy. The multicolored energy entered Xiao Unhyun's nose and mouth. No, this can't be happening. A considerable amount of spiritual energy had appeared in the opponent who previously had none. Xiao Unhyun, who seemed almost dead, was now pushing through the violent wind. Crash! Aart! Xiao Unhyun, breaking through the wind, grabbed both arms of Mokli Wangshin. Mokli Wangshin screamed under his powerful grip. A lifetime of holding the sword till it crumbles. Xiao Unhyun's eyes met with Mokli Wangshin's. Once I grab something, I never let go. Rumbling. Mokli Wangshin's face turned pale as a ghost. A pure white light formed in the empty air. Gangqi began to form. I'm undying. Flash. The light exploded. Mokli Wangshin slowly opened his tightly shut eyes. He was alive. Gasp. Huff. Whoosh. The cluster of light in the air dispersed. The last spark of life had disappeared from Xiao Unhyun's eyes. Dead, huh? Eyes wide open, still holding onto Mokli Wangshin's arms. He died standing there, so fiercely. Ha. So that's it. Mokli Wangshin forced a laugh as he observed Xiao Unhyun's body with his consciousness. The backlash of forcefully maintaining energy. Ha. No wonder he wouldn't fall. Indeed, such a technique can't be without repercussions. Ha. He was alive. He had survived. Hey, I won, you mere mortal. Just as he was about to shout his victory, the dust cloud rising around began to settle. Beyond the dust, numerous figures stood. Ha. What's this now? Aren't these the insignificant bugs that were hiding and trembling behind? Xiao Unhyun's disciples. They were trembling, grinding their teeth in anger. Mokli Wangshin, thinking Kim Young-hoon, the monstrous martial artist who had destroyed his body, might have regained consciousness, checked his surroundings with his consciousness, but Kim Young-hoon was still lying down. Ha. No matter how many of you trash gather, what can you do? You're nothing compared to that guy I was just dealing with. Mokli Wangshin clicked his tongue, thinking of extracting the vital essence of these trash to recover his life force. Just as he was about to form a hand seal, suddenly, Xiao Unhyun's corpse was still not letting go of his arms. Despite being a corpse, his hands would not release. I can't feel my blood circulation. He couldn't even form a hand seal, let alone feel his hands. Mokli Wangshin desperately tried to form a foot seal or use the U-step method, but even that was impossible, possibly due to the hidden weapon Xiao Unhyun had thrown at his legs. Damn it! Mokli Wangshin's triumphant expression twisted into a gruesome scowl. His arms and legs were sealed, and due to the technique used by Xiao Unhyun, his primordial spirit was damaged, preventing him from using high-level spells through his consciousness. His options were running out. Cry out! Mokli Wangshin's command activated the resentful spirits remaining in Xiao Unhyun's disciples. Yes, that can be done. Cry out. Cry. Plop, pop. Clear lights began to rise around Xiao Unhyun, and also around his disciples. Mokli Wangshin knew exactly what it was. The spirits? The spirit ascension technique? The resentful spirits remaining in the disciples were being purified and ascending to heaven, both in Xiao Unhyun's body, due to his death, and in his disciples' bodies. Master, why did you use your last for us? Manho cried with tears flowing. Following him, many disciples started to weep, biting their lips. Mokli Wangshin realized something. Damn it. The gangqi formed by Xiao Unhyun at the last moment hadn't dispersed. Instead of striking Mokli Wangshin, it rapidly spread in hundreds of directions, penetrating the souls of his disciples. At the final moment, he chose to break the spells engraved in his disciples' upper dantians instead of killing the enemy. Mokli Wangshin's face became desperate. His hands, feet, and consciousness were all bound. Even his verbal spell was denied. Then, Manho, Kawa, Changya, and others, countless disciples of Seo Un-hyun, with tears, drew their weapons. Even if Seo Un-hyun had broken the spell, it wouldn't dissolve unless they themselves released their families. But they heard it. Live. Seo Un-hyun's voice. The will to live within it. The moment the spells imposed by the Jin clan broke with the gang chi sent by Seo Un-hyun, everyone felt Seo Un-hyun's will. Leave the rest to us. He entrusted the final blow to his disciples, believing in them. Trust towards his disciples. And the opportunity they dreamed of to strike down the emperor. Just to give them that chance. Just for that opportunity. You tell us to live. But how can we if you leave first? Only then did the disciples understand their master. Just like how their master realized and understood their own stubbornness, they too understood the bitterness of leaving behind those they cherished. Get out of here, you mere mortals. You trash. Whoosh. Mokli Wangshin hastily unfolded a low-level defensive spell, but as about 300 peak masters continuously bombarded the barrier, it began to thin out. Oh no. I'm a cultivator. I'm the founding emperor of Yanghua, a cultivator who has reached the peak of chi building. I am. He looked with eyes filled with terror at the corpse of Seo Un-hyun, still holding his arms. Seo Un-hyun's corpse, still glaring at him with eyes wide open. Dead, yet his presence was as mighty as Mount Tai. I am. Beyond the mountains, there are endless mountains. And in the middle of the road, the path is endless. A single person might come to their end, but what that person leaves behind never fades. Crack. Mokli Wangshin's barrier shattered. Beyond the barrier, the eyes of Seo Un-hyun's disciples, inheriting his will and shining just like their deceased master, glared at Mokli Wangshin. Beyond the Mount Tai that was Seo Un-hyun, the mountains continued unceasingly. I want to live. Manho's great sword decapitated Mokli Wangshin. Thud. The life of Mokli Wangshin, who stubbornly survived by forcefully taking over his descendant, the current emperor Mokli Yung, came to an end. Who? The founding emperor Mokli Wangshin, and the current emperor Mokli Yung. Manho, having decapitated him, held Mokli Yung's head and looked at the still-standing dead body of Seo Un-hyun. Seo Un-hyun's corpse, with eyes now closed, had a faint smile of satisfaction. You watched till the end. Manho, with tears, laid Mokli Wangshin's head before him, and then knelt down. Kawa, Changya, Yoksan, Yeolya, Guak Jisoo. All 300 or so disciples knelt down in turn. Please rest peacefully. Seo Un-hyun's disciples bowed together, bidding their master a final farewell. Translator notes. With that, the fifth and the longest cycle so far is now over. What is in store for our main character now that he obtained the qualifications to cultivate? Come back next time, aka tomorrow, to find out. How did y'all like this arc? Personally, this battle is one of my favorites. I teared up at the end during my first read. Anyway, the next couple chapters are going to be a little shorter, bless my soul. But the story is going to get more and more interesting. I'd also appreciate it a lot if you guys can give a rating on novel updates. Just give it what you think it is. More ratings, no matter the rating, gets more people to read and more comments for me to see. Chapter 35, 6 Cycles First Day. Blink. Phew. I gasped for breath as I opened my eyes. I'm alive. It was still the familiar smell of plants and trees. I had returned again. Deputy Manager Seo. Be quiet for a moment. Thump. Before John Myung-hoon could say anything, I moved quickly and pressed his sleep acupoint. Then, I quickly pressed the sleep acupoints of Kim Young-hoon, Oh Hyun-suk, Kong Min-hee, Oh Hye-seo, and Kim Yun. Thud, thud, thud. All 6, excluding me, fell asleep on the spot, and I quickly dug up some sleeping grass around me. After extracting the juice skillfully, I administered it into their mouths. They won't be able to wake up for at least 3 to 4 hours. A bit stiff. Perhaps due to forcibly drawing internal energy through a body devoid of any internal energy, my arms and legs felt a bit stiff. I wandered around, quickly digging up a yellow bamboo root, and popped into my mouth. Crunch, crunch. I chewed on a bit of dirt, but that was bearable. After chewing on the yellow bamboo root for a while, I felt a warm energy surging in my stomach. I sat down and started to meditate, first anchoring the dragon vein chi method in my meridians. How many times did I perform internal cultivation while sitting? I could feel all the fatigue in my body being relieved. Now that the framework is set, let's give it a proper try. The last moments of my past life. During the fight with Mokli Wangshin, a new realm was drawn by the souls of my disciples. Taking a deep breath, I got up and recalled the final moment's memory. Then, I took the stance of the Severing Mountain swordsmanship. While Kim Young-hoon achieved enlightenment sitting in a lotus position, I found holding the riding stance a bit more comfortable. Whoosh boom. With empty hands, I revived the memories and sensations from that time. Joy, anger, sorrow, pleasure, love, hatred, desire. The 7 basic emotions and intents. Based on these basic intents, a multitude of colors fill the space between heaven and earth. All these immense intent were emanating from me alone. Integrate them. As numerous as they seem, the subject is ultimately one. All originated from one color spectrum. The myriad of colors intertwined and integrated. Then, they became colorless and merged into the void. As the infinite colors reached their limit, they transformed into the nothingness. Thus, my intent evolved into divine consciousness, encroaching the surrounding space. Entering. Even with my eyes completely closed, all the information from the surrounding space entered my mind. It wasn't just reading intent. Integrating all intents, I sensed the world itself. My 6 sleeping colleagues, rustling in their sleep. The smell of grass. Small insects crawling under the ground. The warm sunshine. Small leaves swaying in the wind. All information seemed graspable in the palm of my hand. I awakened a new sensation I had never felt before. Not just the flow of intent, but the flow of the world. The flow of heaven and earth that operates the world. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth. This is spiritual energy. Everything in the universe has spiritual energy. Even if not like human intent, each has its unique energy, chi. This energy naturally flowed, aligned with each object's movement and operation. I sensed the flow of energy from a small ant crawling under the ground, solving one of the mysteries I had always wondered about. Intent is something only the living possess. That's why Jiangshi cannot use sword energy. But why did I sense intent even from the Jiangshi? It wasn't human intent. I merely read the natural flow of energy in Jiangshi. Whoosh. While sensing the flow of thousands of strands of heaven and earth's spiritual energy, I realized something was wrong. My head, it hurts. It felt like it was about to burst. This wasn't just a metaphor. Right now, my head was literally swelling up in real time. I had felt this sensation a long time ago, when I was transitioning from first rate to peak. All day long, imitating the vision of peak masters. When my brain was overloaded back then, I felt a similar sensation for a moment. My brain is overloading. It was on the verge of explosion from the overwhelming volume of information. Not metaphorically, but in reality, the upper dantian was absorbing the surrounding energy, causing my head to actually swell. Right, it was like that then too. Even in the final moments of my past life, it wasn't much different. It was just that I hadn't paid attention to it due to the wailing in my brain and the pain throughout my body. Indeed, this is what happens when one acquires a consciousness like that of a cultivator. Back then, recalling the enlightenment from my past life, I began to take the same actions as I did at that time. I slowly observed my body. The balance of the upper, middle, and lower dantians were twisted and discordant. The upper dantian had become excessively large and was still growing in real time. If left as it is, my head would eventually not withstand the growth of the upper dantian and would explode. I shall evolve my physical body. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth inherently seeks to harmonize all things. Therefore, naturally, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth began to seep into me, responding to my severe disharmony. The 5 elements spiritual energy, the most fundamental of the energy of heaven and earth, the origin of all chi movements in the universe and nature. 5 strands of energy gathered towards my upper dantian and converged above it. Eventually, the 5 elements spiritual energy crumbled into one and started seeping into my body through my nose and mouth. Inside my body, the fundamental 5 energies, which established the balance of all things under heaven, began to flow. Instinctively, I realized what I needed to do. I must evolve my physical body. Based on these 5 streams of energy, I must completely remodel my body to withstand the growth of the upper dantian. I finally understood what rejuvenation truly meant. Previously, I thought that the spiritual energy seeping into the body would naturally evolve it. I was mistaken. Energy doesn't evolve the body. It's just the material used for remodeling. The actual agent of rejuvenation was always myself. I personally. Crackle. I must balance my body. With intent, I rearranged my bones and muscles. I pulled and optimized the meridians, making them flow through the most efficient paths. The 5 elements spiritual energy did not directly help, but showed me the right way to reconfigure my bones and muscles. Adding my medical knowledge from being a doctor, I was able to easily remodel my body. Bones rearranged, skin shed, useless fat pushed out, and toxins like nicotine and cholesterol in the blood vessels expelled. My entire body's bones and muscles were remodeled into a form optimized for accepting the flow of energy from heaven and earth. The best physique for martial arts. The meridians widened, the bones and muscles strengthened, and the dantian expanded significantly. Simultaneously, all the minute blood vessels in my body opened wide, absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth little by little. I could live by just breathing through the skin without needing to breathe through my nose. At this moment, I was more of an evolved human than a regular human. Flash. As I opened my eyes, it seemed as if pure light flowed from within. With empty hands, I performed the primary stance and unfolded the severing mountain swordsmanship's transcending peaks. Tiny dewdrops at the tips of the grass under my feet were flung up by my stance. With my movements, the dewdrops flew higher into the air, and in my eyes, I could clearly see the trajectory of each droplet. Within those droplets, I could see a reflection. Flawlessly clear skin, a face not particularly handsome, but without superfluity. Though not much, a considerably younger face. Through rebirth and rejuvenation, my own reflection was seen in those dewdrops. Shush! I sliced through the air with my hand, and the sharp intent split the dewdrop in midair. Continuously unfolding sword techniques. The flow of energy floating between heaven and earth. I infused my intent into that flow, injecting my internal energy. Whoosh! Gangchi began to form in the empty space. Now, I could use the flow of the void itself as a weapon. Crash! Grasping the Gangchi formed in the air, I used the first to the 20-second moves of severing mountain swordsmanship. Then, I decided to do something I had always wanted to try. Wish. I performed the mountain lord's soaring flight and leaped towards the highest tree nearby. In an instant, I reached the top of the tree and kicked off a branch from there. I could see into the newly acquired consciousness, into the sensations of my newly acquired physical body, the countless wind patterns flowing through the sky, and the flow of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth between the winds. Is this how it's done? Naturally, in my mind, I figured out where I could step. With optimized movements and without any waste, I stepped on the breezing wind and the flow of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Boom! My foot struck the void, stepping in the void. Although it wasn't familiar yet and consumed a lot of my internal energy, I felt a tingling pleasure coursing through my body as I continued to step in the void. Boom, boom, boom. Stepping on the void, I continuously soared higher into the sky. Higher and higher. The ground gradually became distant, and the sky drew closer. I moved my feet faster, stepping on the flow of the void and surging towards the sky. Then, suddenly, whoosh, I broke through the clouds and found myself above them. Ha 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 ha! Shaking off the water droplets that clung to my entire body, with the white sea of clouds beneath my feet, I laughed out loud. Finally, I have reached it. The realm I had longed for and aspired to. The minimum requirement I aimed for. Unknowingly, I felt tears welling up. The tears, mixed with the droplets from the clouds, began to fall to the sky below. Thank you. I spoke to my disciples from my past life, to those across the timeline whom I could never see again. It was thanks to you that I could reach this point. I nurtured you with my heart. But now, I will never be able to see you again. The you in this return time won't be the disciples I raised. Since I can never see you again, all I can do is wholeheartedly thank you. Thank you, my disciples. And I'm sorry, my disciples. I was able to reach this realm by taking care of you, listening to your wishes, acting foolishly on my stubbornness, and cutting through that stubbornness. The realm I endlessly aspired to reach. The 5 energies converging to the origin. Not maintaining stepping in the void, I fell back down, facing the patterns of the wind. I embraced the refreshing breeze from the expansive sky, while simultaneously cherishing the memories of my disciples deep within my heart. Holding on to these past memories, I came to understand that I had truly arrived at the starting point. Whoosh! From now on, it's the real beginning. Buried in the clouds, I thought so. Yes, from now on, it's the real starting line. Chapter 36, 5 energies converging to the origin and the changes that followed. I descended to the ground, woke up my companions, and briefly explained the situation. It seems we are stranded, with no knowledge of our location, and so on. I led the group to a cave, lit a fire, and fed them some food. After that, I put them back to sleep and left the cave. Thud! I kicked off the air and ran towards where the fox was. Thud! How long did I wander in the air? I was able to sense the vast field of consciousness once again. A giant fox with 3 tails. This time, how far can I go? Thump! I landed on the ground. Then, I slowly approached the fox while simultaneously using record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts and record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts. Buzzword. Creating a hand blade. I cut through the air, slicing through the fox's perception, and approached it slowly. Just 10 steps from the field of consciousness. That was my limit in the past life. What about now? Step. Without hesitation, I moved within 10 steps. Step. And then another step. The texture of consciousness is much clearer and more distinct than when I first reached the stage of 3 flowers gather at the summit. It's clear how to cut and navigate through it. I continued walking towards the fox's field of consciousness. 9 steps, 8 steps, 7 steps, 3 steps, 2 steps, and then the last one. Hesitating with just 1 step left, I focused my intent more intensely and took that final step into the fox's field of consciousness. Ugh. Like so, I successfully entered the fox's domain of consciousness. The consciousness of a core formation demon. Finally, I smiled within the fox's consciousness. Finally, I can operate to some extent within the consciousness of a core formation being. That is, at least I can flee in front of a core formation cultivator. I continued to navigate the fox's field of consciousness using the martial arts created by Kim Young-hoon. The size of the fox's consciousness extends 30 zhong, 100 m, in radius from the fox. I continued walking, closing in about 1 zhong closer to the fox. The remaining distance is about 29 zhong. The fox's consciousness gets much denser from here on. However, I concentrated my consciousness and gathered my intent. The essence of Kim Young-hoon's enlightenment, evolved from secrets of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts, is still vivid in my mind. Its minimum entry requirement is 5 energies converging to the origin. Just as a first-rate cannot understand the world of the pinnacle, and an early peak cannot understand the world of 3 flowers gather at the summit. Anyone below 5 energies cannot comprehend this martial art system. It's incomplete because it can't be properly transmitted. The end of my past life. Kim Young-hoon's words echo in my mind. But you don't need to worry. This martial art will now, I concentrate, be inherited by me. Record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts. A supreme martial arts system that only begins with 5 energies, born through all the stages from record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts to secrets of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts. That enlightenment blooms from my fingertips. Record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts lets one slice through consciousness. Record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts lets one harmonize with consciousness. Record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts lets one divide consciousness. Sword Gang forms in the air. The shining Sword Gang, moving on its own, unfolds record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts and burrows into the fox's consciousness. Since Sword Gang is inanimate, it doesn't cause any worry for biological reactions or other thoughts, making it much more easy to enter and only needs to cut through consciousness. The Sword Gang swiftly crosses another 6 zhong, closing the distance to the fox T0 23 zhong. Beyond this point, the density of the consciousness was definitely thicker, making it hard to approach. I dispersed the Sword Gang and organized the essence of record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts. So this is what the enlightenment of surpassing cultivation and martial arts is like. A technique where I divide my consciousness, input actions, and implement it. Not just simple actions, but even thoughts and enlightenment could be input, allowing me to fully unfold my techniques. This is the essence leading to the next realm beyond 5 energies converging to the origin. The realm of using Gang-chi compression sphere. Until now, I wondered how Kim Young-hoon managed to intercept opponents with spheres of Gang-chi, but now I'm beginning to understand. If I continue to follow the record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts, I will eventually reach the realm beyond 5 energies. With that hope, I cut through the fox's consciousness again and returned to the cave. The next morning, the fox came again, asking for my arm, and I simply gave it to it again. Maybe because my new arm was free of cholesterol and nicotine, the fox chewed it very deliciously, seemingly coveting the rest of me, but eventually said it would come back in 5 days and left. It seems my body has become more suited to the fox's taste after my transformation. A few days passed. Soon they arrived. Swoosh. As Sir Chang-ho stomped his foot, my arm regenerated. 3 cultivators appeared and looked around us. This time, the reaction was slightly different than before. So there are 4 with spiritual roots. The middle-aged man in a golden robe flicked his hand. As his consciousness moved, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth spontaneously writhed and enveloped me. John Myung-hoon, Oh Hyun-suk, and Kang Min-hee. This is a new sight. Until now, only the same 3 were chosen, but now I was also the subject of their interest. They chatted amongst themselves, then one by one took John Myung-hoon, Kang Min-hee, Oh Hyun-suk, and turned their attention to me. Not responding to my spell. No reaction to my earthen listening technique. My law of view shows no reaction. Woong. I felt my consciousness tremble at their strange method of conversation, resonating with vibrations. I didn't realize until now, but with awakened consciousness, I understood their way of speaking was not through voice, but by directly infusing meaning into consciousness. Well, let's see what kind of spiritual nature you have. The man in the golden robe reached out to me. Woong. Cough. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth moved on its own, compressing my entire body. At the same time, the spiritual energy forced its way into my meridians, wreaking havoc throughout. Simultaneously, I felt the consciousness of the man in the golden robe thoroughly searching my entire body. KGH Ak, pain as if holes were being drilled into all my meridians. But I clenched my teeth and endured the pain. After a while, the cultivator in the golden robe crudely withdrew the spiritual energy from my body and spoke. You have good endurance. But, the spiritual energy that had exited my body gathered in the air and split into 5 streams of energy, the attributes of the 5 elements. Seeing this, interest faded from the eyes of the cultivator in the golden robe and the others. 5 elements, spiritual roots. That impure energy I feel from his body. Is he a martial artist? Ha ha ha. Judging by his expression, he seems to have been unaware of the cultivation world. Perhaps he just lived in the mountains, unaware of his own spiritual nature, practicing martial arts. The blue-armored cultivator, Changho, laughed heartily. You seem to be unaware of the cultivation world. For spiritual nature or spiritual roots of cultivators, the fewer attributes they have, the faster the cultivation speed. Conversely, the more attributes, the slower the cultivation progress. That is why a single attribute spiritual nature is called heavenly spiritual nature. 2 or 3 attributes are called true spiritual nature. 4 or 5 attributes are called mixed spiritual nature and are disdained. Ha ha ha. But don't worry too much. If cultivation was solely determined by natural talent, those with 5 elements spiritual roots like you would have all hanged themselves by now. Cultivation is not just about talent, but also understanding of techniques and realms, and overall mental capacity is important. Persistence, patience, and willpower also play a significant part. From what I've seen, you have terrible talent, and I'm not sure about your mental capacity, but you passed that nasty golden robe guy's brutal spiritual nature test without screaming, so your endurance and willpower seem excellent. Sir Changho laughed heartily and flicked a small cluster of light towards me. The cluster of light merged into the back of my hand, transforming into a small mark. At the farthest reaches of my family's extended lineage, there is a cultivator clan established by those guys. They're too weak and overall frail to be taken to the Ascension Gate this time. Still, this might be of help to you. It's a recommendation letter for an external member of the family. They're in a country of mortals called Biokra, and they use the surname Changman, so you should head to the Changman clan. After finishing his words, Sir Changho and the other 2 cultivators turned into clusters of light and vanished into the sky. I quietly greeted Sir Changho while looking at the small mark imprinted on my hand. Hey, Deputy Manager CEO, what exactly did they say? I'm not quite sure myself. I shook my head, pretending not to know, and another day passed. Just like before, a storm blew. I lay in the cave, nursing Deputy Manager Ohayesio, who was groaning in pain, and observed her. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is moving around her. I hadn't known before, but now, with awakened consciousness, I could tell. The vast spiritual power of the sky was swirling around her. Sometime later, Sea Dragon King Seo Huiol appeared, took her away, and soon after, Manager Kim Yun awoke her powers. Kugugugugu. This is, only now, with awakened consciousness, could I vaguely see the reality of Manager Kim Yun's abilities. Incredible. This is a human's consciousness. Countless threads of consciousness, seemingly thousands, millions, even billions, were emerging around her, enveloping the space between heaven and earth. The size of these threads of consciousness seemed not to pale in comparison to those of cultivators. At the same time, I noticed her upper dantian rapidly expanding, suffering the same side effects as me upon awakening her abilities. I let out a small exclamation at her ability and pressed some acupoints to stabilize her upper dantian a bit. Deputy Manager CEO, touching me like this, my head seems to hurt less. Manager Kim Yun held her head and looked at me. Then, she looked in one direction. The direction where the several cultivators and the Sea Dragon King had headed. From there, a hunchback strange being was flying towards us. Whoosh. As soon as the hunchback being arrived, he looked at me and Manager Kim Yun, flicking his finger at her. A white cluster of light flew and landed on Manager Kim Yun's upper dantian, starting to ease the twisting effect. What's that? I had never seen such a thing in my past life. It must be something he's been using all along, but I could only see now with awakened consciousness. The hunchback old man examined Manager Kim Yun, then turned his gaze to me. What's this? Like the previous cultivators, the hunchback's gaze was different from the previous encounters. Let's see, this bone structure, this spiritual nature, this size of consciousness. After examining me for a moment, the hunchback suddenly approached and started fiddling with my body. Shortly after, the hunchback chuckled and giggled. I see. This internal energy, this bone structure, these meridians, the size of consciousness, and especially the 5-element spiritual roots. You're the same kind as that person I saw in my youth. The hunchback revealed his teeth and giggled. You weren't born a chosen cultivator, were you? Right. I couldn't help but flinch at those words. None of the previous cultivators or the Sea Dragon King had noticed that fact, or perhaps they just weren't interested. The old man chuckled and continued to grope me. I felt a bit annoyed, but seeing the size of his consciousness, I knew I couldn't oppose him and had to silently endure. Ah, your consciousness is stirring. I was right. You are a martial artist who has learned martial arts and entered the realm of cultivators. Right. How did you know? I asked in Yangguo's language, so Kim Yun and Director Kim wouldn't understand. The hunchback old man chuckled and spoke. Well, I saw someone just like you about 1600 years ago. Yes, martial artists call this realm 5 energies converging to the origin, don't they? Indeed. I expected they were beings who lived for a very long time. Such beings, having lived for so long, would surely have encountered a martial artist who had reached the realm of 5 energies at least once. That person was also considered a genius by the standards of the martial world. I met them when I was in Qi building, and they were able to compete with me to some extent. Although they eventually lost to me, it was quite an entertaining experience. After meeting them, I scoured ancient texts to see if there were any other such peculiar beings. It turns out, every few hundred years, such individuals do emerge, albeit very rarely. Their characteristics were all the same as yours. The old man touched my shoulder. Very sturdy physique. Wide meridians. A martial artist's internal energy fully filling the dantian. The old man grabbed my chin, forcibly opened my mouth, and pointed at my teeth. For a moment, I felt the urge to kick him away, but knowing the potential backlash, I had no choice but to forcibly suppress my irritation. Perfectly symmetrical and clean teeth alignment. Such alignment can't naturally occur. Even cultivators born with spiritual roots don't have such teeth. Only martial artists who have reached 5 energies converging to the origin and undergone a complete transformation have such teeth. The old man let go of my chin and touched my consciousness domain with his own, speaking, and the consciousness of a typical 3rd or 4th star, Qi refining. To think a martial artist without a speck of spiritual power would have such consciousness? Impossible. Such an enlarged consciousness is only seen in martial artists who have awakened their consciousness at 5 energies converging to the origin. Most importantly, your 5 elements' spiritual roots. He then grabbed my wrist, sending energy through it, like checking the pulse. Martial artists, when reaching 5 energies converging to the origin, evenly draw the spiritual energy of the 5 elements from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to prevent imbalance in the upper dantian during their transformation. Thanks to this, martial artists at 5 energies converging to the origin have much more evenly distributed spiritual energy in their bodies compared to ordinary cultivators with 5 elements roots. These are the proof that you are not an ordinary cultivator with 5 elements spiritual roots, but a martial artist at 5 energies converging to the origin. The hunchback chuckled and released his hand from me. Such facts are unknown unless you're as scholarly and wise as I am, having lived a long life. It feels like meeting an old friend from my youth, so I ended up talking a bit too much. It seemed he momentarily overlapped me with the martial artist he met 1600 years ago. The hunchback old man smirked while looking at the mark on my hand. Seeing the mark on your hand, it seems that Changho, that kind soul, gave you a recommendation, right? Ha ha, what a foolish and stupid fellow. A martial artist who reached 5 energies converging to the origin would be perfect for inheriting the body refinement technique he practices. Just being at 5 energies converging to the origin guarantees basic combat power. To recommend such a person to a lowly clan in the lower realms, that foolish fellow made another mistake. He chuckled amusingly and asked me a question. I have a question for you. What is the primary martial art you practice? Swordsmanship. Oh good. Swords are great. The friend I met used a spear mainly, but they also practiced swordsmanship. Most martial artists learn the sword anyway. Ah, but that's not the important part. Regarding you. He looked at me with a wicked smile. Can you swear never to wield a sword for the rest of your life? If you make such a vow, I'll personally take you as my disciple. Never to wield a sword? Contemplation was brief. No, it would be more accurate to say there never was contemplation. Thank you for the offer, but I cannot let go of the sword. Even though if you become my disciple, you will get the opportunity to ascend beyond the ascension gate, directly to the higher realms. I may be ignorant of what that opportunity entails, but I cannot give up the martial arts I have practiced all my life. If you become my disciple, you can live for hundreds of years more. And yet, you can't give up the martial arts you've only practiced for a few decades. Just a few decades. I let out a small, bitter smile. Not just a few decades, nor was it insignificant. My past lives. Yes, martial arts are my past lives. I apologize, but even if I live a short life and die young, I cannot let go of the sword entrusted to my hand. After examining me for a while, the hunchback old man let out a wry laugh. It seems boring. That person 1,600 years ago said the same. Their consciousness was barely at the 4th star of Qi refining, but they could launch attacks beyond the peak of chi refining. It was fascinating, so I tried to take them as my disciple, but they said the same as you. His expression seemed somewhat regretful. Fine. If you refuse to be my disciple, so be it. Just so you know, I have a bad temper, so I won't particularly recommend you like Changho. It's just that our paths didn't cross. Now get lost. Whoosh. The old man extended his hand, and space behind him split open, emitting a dark void. The same progression as before. My body and Kim Young-hoon began to be sucked into the spatial rift. Well, I'm not pleased that you refused to be my disciple, but I respect your spirit, so I'll give you a gift. A white cluster of light burst from the fingertips of the hunchback old man. The cluster of light seeped into my head as it was drawn into the spatial rift, and something seemed to imprint in my mind. Like always, I fell through the spatial rift. The difference from past lives was that the last thing I saw beyond the rift was not Manager Kim reaching out to us, but the hunchback old man waving. Whoosh. The wind blows. It's cold. Everything around is utterly blue. Where is this? I suddenly realized I was descending at high speed. This is crazy. I was startled and came to my senses. Falling. From the sky. Looking around, Kim Young-hoon was also far away, falling with me. I quickly deployed void stepping and caught Kim Young-hoon, pressing his sleep acupoint to keep him unconscious, then used void stepping to reduce our falling speed. After falling for a while, I stepped through the air and safely landed on the ground. If I hadn't come to my senses, I would have unknowingly transitioned to the next life. It's chilling. No matter how random, I didn't expect to fall from the sky. I wiped the cold sweat and looked around. First of all, this place is. After observing the terrain by leaping through the sky with void steps, I figured out roughly where I was. The west of Lianshan City. Lianshan City, the city where I first fell. After several regressions, I had fallen again near this place. First, let's see what the hunchback old man gave me. I closed my eyes and began to read the laws imprinted in my head by the hunchback old man. Chapter 37, Cultivator 1. Woom woom. In my mind, a volume's worth of mystical runes floated gently. I examined these runes, gradually understanding their content. The name of the method was Hidden Consciousness Technique, a mystic art that allows one to conceal one's divine consciousness to appear at a lower realm. It could be executed solely through the manipulation of consciousness, without the need for spiritual power. The basic principle of hidden consciousness technique involved compressing one's consciousness and pushing it into the upper dantian. This temporarily reduces the size of the consciousness, but increases its density and clarity for a period, potentially accelerating the practice of cultivation methods. Due to dealing with intent, it has some commonalities with record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts and record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts. I carefully read through all the mystical runes left by the hunched old man. At the very end of these runes, I found a message left by him. As a martial artist who has reached the realm of 5 energies converging to the origin, your consciousness is larger than that of other cultivators. However, don't be arrogant just because you have mediocre 5 elements spiritual roots. Just conceal your superiority and focus on your practice. Showing off an ambiguous talent will only attract jealousy from those who lack even that. Thank you for your valuable gift. I quietly expressed my gratitude to the hunchback old man and placed Kim Young-hoon aside for a moment. Then, I recalled a bandit group nearby. They were called the Tuho Gang. I had a particular memory involving them. Before experiencing regression, in my first life, when famine struck the village I lived in, the Tuho Gang raided and looted everything from our impoverished village. Bang bang. I kicked off the ground and rushed towards their base near Lianshan City. I was more familiar with the geography around Lianshan City than any other place in Yanghua. Arriving at the cave where the Tuho Gang is based, I let out a wry laugh at the familiar stench. The smell of alcohol, rotten vegetables, dried semen, rusty weapons, sweat, and dirt. Yes, the collective scent of poverty, ignorance, and violence. I was all too familiar with these scents. Memories of my first life came flooding back. Come out, everyone. I spoke softly, yet clearly, into the depth of the cave where the Tuho Gang resided. Hiccup, hiccup. A drunken member of the Tuho Gang, his face flushed from daytime drinking, stumbled towards me with a flexible sword in hand. What the hell are you, fuck? Ha! His stupid and pathetic appearance only made me laugh. When I was in the early peak in the 4th cycle, I annihilated the chicken waterway fort within a moment, and even they were more organized and skilled than these fools. Truly, lowly and pathetic robbers. That was the Tuho Gang. I had memories of bowing down at their feet, offering everything I had, begging for my life. You little shit, you dare come to our great Tuho Gang. Life must have been hard, right? What? In your next life, may you have better chances. Thud. No need for a sword, not even a hand technique. I didn't even need to make a fist. I simply extended my finger and flicked the drunken Tuho gangster's forehead. Using a simple technique to send a shockwave through his brain, he immediately fell over, foam bubbling from his mouth. There would have been no pain. Entering the foul-smelling cave, I reminisced about my first life. The Tuho gang was vicious. But ironically, most of them were originally peasants. Driven to desperation with land taken by landlords, they left their homes and became bandits. Perhaps I would have been among them if I had been a bit weaker. They were another possibility of my miserable first life. Thud, thud. I touched the heads of each person I encountered, shaking their brains and instantly killing them. They were pitiable, but they were definitely criminals. Going deeper into the cave, I found kidnapped people and women lying around, half-naked. I pressed their sleep acupoints and quietly killed the Tuho gangsters. After walking through the cave for a while, I reached its deepest area. There, a bearded giant was guzzling liquor. He was the leader of the Tuho gang. For what reason caused you to operate such a bandit group? The giant, blowing on a liquor bottle, looked at me with dull eyes. He was someone I knew. In my first life, he was the one who led the attack and burned down my village. But now, seeing him, he was at best a second-rate martial artist. Is there usually a special reason? Life is painful, so I thought maybe stealing happiness from others would make it better. So, did life get any better for you? Haha, can't you see? Do I look happy to you? Life is nothing but pain. Why is life painful? That is, it's painful because it's painful. Is any more explanation needed? Life is indeed painful. Somehow, I felt I could relate to those words. Clearly, this person and I were in different positions, under different circumstances. Yet, somehow, I could see my past self in him. The weak and insignificant me who was burdened with pain from life, unable to even find the reason for my suffering. Through the eyes of another vulnerable person, I was able to reflect on my past years. Right, life is indeed painful. Yeah, life really is. But, I looked at the leader of the Tuho gang with pity. From my experience, pain is not the end. Swoosh. I gently pushed the Tuho gang's leader. The energy I inserted with the tip of my finger caused his brain to burst, and he breathed his last. He must have gone peacefully. I gathered a few silver coins and money from the gang's residence and left. Stepping out, I bathed in the sunlight outside the cave, freeing myself from the nightmare that tormented me in my earlier life. With the silver coins, I went to Lianshan City, made identity plaques for myself and Kim Young-hoon, and bought clothes. Then, I raided the unorthodox factions within the city and took them all down. Selling the gold and properties I acquired from them, I bought a decent manor and devoted myself to educating Kim Young-hoon. Around a month later, Kim Young-hoon, following my teachings, easily reached the state of 3 flowers gather at the summit. Whoosh! 3 chief flowers blossomed in the air and then entered back into Kim Young-hoon. Shortly after, his eyes shone with enlightenment, and he experimented with his new senses, trying out various techniques. Then, his intent connected with my consciousness. Wait, hold on. By the way, Seo Eun-hyun, that consciousness of yours, what is it exactly? He gazed at me, fascinated by the domain of consciousness surrounding me. I smiled and drew a saber in the training ground, adopting a primary saber stance. Rapidly, I demonstrated the severing vein saber method. Severing vein saber method, first move, mountain force. Holding the saber, I struck both upper and lower positions simultaneously. Severing vein saber method, second move, mountain spirit. Spinning and slashing in all directions, I created a defense that no one could penetrate. Severing vein saber method, third move, mountain presence. I unleashed continuous saber energy, mimicking the overlapping mountains. Severing vein saber method, fourth move, mountain wind. With invisible speed, I disrupted the opposite's flow with my thrust. Severing vein saber method, fifth move, mountain unfolding. More ferocious than the basic moves, the saber danced wildly in all directions. Severing vein saber method, sixth move, mountain bird. With light footwork, I swung the saber so fast it was invisible, making my movements unstoppable. Severing vein saber method, seventh move, mountain echo. The sound of the saber resonated, vibrating rapidly to crush everything it touched. Severing vein saber method, eighth move, mountain scream. The energy from the saber burst forth like waves, similar to mountain echo. Severing vein saber method, ninth move, middle mountain. The saber energy dug into the ground, leaving a powerful mark affecting its surroundings. Severing vein saber method, 10th move, dragon's mount. Like a dragon ascending from a hill, the saber's tip thrashed wildly. Severing vein saber method, 11th move, white peak. The ascended dragon's head glowed white, piercing through clouds. I grasped the saber and split it into 10 paths. Severing vein saber method, 12th move, great trunk. The 10 paths of saber energy merged into one, transforming into a powerful strike capable of slicing through millennium-old rocks. Severing Vein Saber Method, 13th move, Surpassing Mountains. Similar to Transcending Peaks, but several times faster, it sliced through the air. Severing Vein Saber Method, 14th move, Returning Home. Beyond the slash, I released dozens of saber energies, dividing the attack. Severing Vein Saber Method, 15th move, Saber Tomb. I poured all techniques from 1st to 14th moves into a single strike. Severing Vein Saber Method, 16th move, Endless Mountains Beyond Mountains. Finally, the 17th move. Boom. I unleashed all 17 moves of Severing Vein Saber Method. The 16th and 17th moves of Severing Vein were identical to the 23rd and 24th moves of Severing Mountain. Moreover, the Severing Vein Saber Method was fundamentally quite similar to the Severing Mountain swordsmanship. Since they originated from the same root, there was nothing strange about it. I handed my saber to Kim Young-hoon, who was staring blankly at it, and said, "You saw it just now, didn't you?" "Yes, I did." What I had just demonstrated was not a mere saber method. I mixed in the enlightenment of 5 energies converging to the origin, showing thousands of threads of intent within the saber method. Perhaps, if he continues to explore the essence of the Severing Vein Saber Method he just witnessed, he would eventually reach the realm of 5 energies. "You are truly a genius. How can you master such a high level of martial arts?" he exclaimed in admiration, and I gave a bitter smile. "A genius? I am not a genius. Like our other colleagues at the company, I just awakened a slightly unusual ability. With that ability, I could immediately reach the realm of 5 energies converging to the origin, but beyond that is impossible." I made sure he didn't misunderstand, but his brief remark stayed in my mind for a long time. Genius. A single word that summed up all my past lives. But I couldn't deny it. In this world, there are many who haven't even had the chance to experience my past lives' opportunities. Instead of arguing against being a genius, I pointed out the flaws in Kim Young-hoon's martial arts, taught him literacy and speech, and instructed him in martial arts. 3 months later, Kim Young-hoon mastered literacy and speech and was getting accustomed to martial arts. I left the record of surpassing cultivation and martial arts in the manor and told him to read it when he reaches 5 energies converging to the origin, then left the manor. In this life, I might not have a significant connection with him. I left Kim Young-hoon and headed for Seokyung City. Having infiltrated Seokyung City, I quickly invaded the Imperial Palace using record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts and surpassing cultivation and martial arts. Then, swoosh. Using the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, I cut through the consciousness and silently beheaded the Emperor Mok Li-young. At this time, it seems that the Shadow Guards had not been established yet, as the only people guarding Mok Li-young were the palace guards. Holding Mok Li-young's head, I cut through invisible spells and barriers with my eyes, and safely escaped the Imperial Palace. Having escaped, I walked for days and nights until I entered a familiar terrain, the territory of the Jin clan. Woo-woo. I had not noticed before, but now I could clearly see the energy of the barrier spread across the Jin clan's territory. It seems like a benefit of awakening my consciousness and being able to see the energy of heaven and earth. The Jin clan's barrier glowed faintly under the moonlight. This shouldn't be difficult. I easily cut through a gap in the Jin clan's barrier and secretly entered their territory. Although it was the Jin clan's territory, it was mostly occupied by chi refining cultivators. Most of these cultivators had no access to formation methods. That's probably why the barrier wasn't particularly strong. I erased my presence using the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts and headed to the familiar training ground. Next to the training ground, in the group lodging, many breaths and intents were flowing out from there. Thud, thud. I slowly entered the lodging. The smell of sweat was strong. Suddenly, I felt something welling up in my chest as I saw this scene. My disciples. No, the children who were my disciples in a past timeline. But I knew. These children no longer remembered me. The children I remembered were trained by me, developed martial arts with me, and grew up with me. Yes, even though these children are the same beings as the ones I know, they were not the same individuals. The disciples that only I know, I would never see again. Are you suffering even in your sleep? I looked at the sleeping children's intents and smiled bitterly. It seems they were having nightmares of their relatives being killed by Mok Li clan cultivators. Most of their intents were emitting dark light. For these children, life was nothing but pain. These children are certainly not my disciples. But still, I can't just ignore you. Having lived, I knew that pain was not the end. Gently, I placed Mok Li-young's head in the middle of the training ground. Then, looking back at the sleeping children, I murmured softly, "Live. Even if life is painful, it's not all there is to it. Discovering something beyond suffering makes life truly valuable and worth living. Please live." After giving a final smile to my disciples, I went to the back of the Jin clan's territory to a warehouse. The warehouse was enveloped in a sinister aura. I opened the door of the warehouse. Inside, There were hundreds of crystal beads, each containing a resentful spirit. Sheik. I drew my sword from its sheath. May you, the deceased, shed your resentment and rest in peace. Flash. The sword gang shining from my sword scattered in all directions, embedding into the crystal beads. Hundreds of crystal beads shattered at once, and the spirits began to escape. Pop, pop. The spirits that escaped from the beads soon forgot their resentment and turned into bright lights, ascending to the sky. The sight of countless spirits rising to the sky and then disappearing was both poignant and beautiful. Watching the scene for a moment, I stepped out of the warehouse and kicked into the air. It seemed I had touched some inner spells, as the surrounding spells were activated, but I cut through the energy knots and quickly escaped the encirclement of the formation. I hurriedly left the Jin clan's territory and said goodbye to my disciples in my heart. Farewell. May you live a slightly better life in this lifetime. I headed towards the border of Yinghua. Beyond the border, in Byaokra country, I plan to find the Chongmun clan that resides there. Go to the Chongmun clan to learn the path of cultivation.